Chapter 519. Fu Bao's faith collapsed at this moment. I have many disciples. From now on, you are removed from the list. This sentence was like a merciless dagger that ruthlessly pierced through his last perseverance. Yes, you have thousands of disciples. How could you lack a useless person like me whose divine body was destroyed? At this moment, Fu Bao thought of what Luo Xiu said when he fought with him. When you become a celestial master, you will know how ridiculous the truth is. By then, you will either integrate into it or be rejected or even killed. Talking about justice with me now is just bullsh*t. At that time, he did not understand what Luo Xiu meant. He did not understand the truth that could only be known after becoming a celestial master. He did not understand what it meant to integrate or be rejected. Now, he finally understood. When the truth puts on a mask of hypocrisy, the moment it reveals its true face is always extremely cruel. Would they either integrate or be abandoned? At this moment, Fu Bao thought of the underworld where he was now. Although it was cruel and ruthless, everything was so naked and real. It was a stark contrast to the hypocrisy of the heaven realm. Resentment. Endless resentment rose from the bottom of his heart. He resented the cruelty of the truth. In just one day, everything seemed to have changed. The heaven realm that he thought was no longer the peaceful place it used to be. There were too many hypocritical, sanctimonious people in it. But now, he was not even qualified to integrate into it. At this moment, the helplessness and struggle in his heart turned into resentment. However, he was powerless to resist. He had lost everything. In the wind and snow, he barely maintained his life with the sole power that Lu Wu left in his body. He struggled to get up. The resentment in his heart gave him the courage to continue living. He was eager to cultivate again. Since he could not cultivate the celestial method, he would cultivate the ghost method. He wanted to see deity Qing Mo again. He wanted to make him regret his decision and make him pay the price for deceiving him. Step by step, he kept walking forward while trembling. At this moment, Lu Wu's figure appeared again. He looked at Fu Bao without a trace of pity in his eyes. I seem to have won. You won. What's the price? I have nothing now. Fu Bao turned to look at Lu Wu with his trembling body. How about we make a deal? Do I still have the qualifications now? Fu Bao mocked himself. He was very clear about his current situation. He had no value at all. Otherwise, that heartless master would not have abandoned him. Do you want to become stronger than your master? Hearing this, Fu Bao's body trembled, his eyes filled with disbelief. Can you do it? Yes. But you have to pay a lot because I don't trust you at all. Lu Wu said. What should I do? Bid farewell to the past and become a puppet. Upon hearing this, Fu Bao was shocked. However, Lu Wu continued to speak. Actually, whether you're willing or not, you don't have a choice because you've already lost. As he spoke, Lu Wu waved his hand, and a space tunnel appeared beside the talisman, sucking him into it. In the artifact space at the other end of the passageway, Bailey, who was already prepared, immediately started to modify the talisman treasure. Obviously, Fu Bao's treatment was completely different from that of Tong Gua and Sangxiu. It could be said that the transformation was in force. Even if Fu Bao hated his master, he had lived in the heaven realm for millions of years. How could Lu Wu trust him so easily? Some ideas, even if they were broken, could not be changed in a short period of time. Even if he realized the lies of the heaven realm, he would still join it in the end, even if he was confused or hated it for a short period of time. Bailey had told Lu Wu about many examples of this. This was because the gods of the heaven realm, who rose after the war of the three realms, without exception, chose to join the heaven realm after they became immortals and learned the truth. Even if Fu Bao was experiencing enough despair, he still thought of himself as a member of the heaven realm. The lies and betrayals that he hated were only relative to his master. This was an extremely unstable factor. If Lu Wu trusted him, he could make Lu Wu pay a heavy price at any time. Therefore, Lu Wu would take the risk. His mercy could be given to Tsangshu, Tongguo, or any other living beings in the underworld, but not to the gods of the heaven realm. This was because they were the real traitors of the three realms and their enemies. Just like how they had never shown mercy to the underworld, Lu Wu would not give them anything either. This time, Lu Wu not only wanted to erase Fu Bao's memory, but also implant new memories to turn him into a completely new existence. The reason why Lu Wu chose Fu Bao was not because of his divine body or his potential, but because of his memory. The moment he instructed Tongguo and the Rock Ghost King to set up the formation, Lu Wu realized that Fu Bao had a profound foundation in formations and runes. This was something that Lu Wu lacked at the moment. As the development of the players accelerated and the era of comprehensive development had arrived, he needed talents in this field to fill the gap. He had Tongguo for forging and the Rock Ghost King for refining medicine, but they were not enough. Lu Wu needed more mentors in this field to lead the players. As for why he destroyed Fu Bao's divine body, it was naturally because he wanted to spend extra soul coins. Recasting the body of Tsangshu in the Ghost Emperor realm cost Lu Wu millions of soul coins. Although the soul coins needed to refine, it was not as expensive as recasting it. Fu Bao was still a divine body. The price needed to refine it was unimaginable. Most importantly, Lu Wu did not need such a combat power. He only valued Fu Bao's ability to become a life profession mentor. There was no need to spend a large amount of soul coins to preserve his combat power. This was because the core combat power that Lu Wu valued the most was still the players. As long as the players were allowed to grow, they could all become god-level powerhouses like Fu Bao. As for the other NPCs, their main mission was to help the players develop. Of course, they would also be a part of Lu Wu's power. However, in terms of potential and number, they were obviously incomparable to the players. At this moment, in the artifact space, Bei Li's transformation was still ongoing. Without the divine body, Fu Bao was now just like an ordinary person. The transformation was very smooth, and it did not require a large amount of soul power to assist in the transformation. During this transformation, Bei Li needed to remove all of Fu Bao's memories about the heaven realm, leaving only the memories of formations and runes. The transformation process lasted for half a day. Because Fu Bao's memories were too complicated, it was much more complicated than anyone else's. When the transformation was completed, Bei Li was so tired that she collapsed on the ground. She looked like she needed to eat 5 kilograms of snacks to recover her strength. As for Fu Bao, not only did his memories change, even his appearance had changed drastically. Lu Wu did this for the sake of insurance. Although the heaven realm was unwilling to accept Fu Bao, it was inevitable that accidents would happen if he met an acquaintance again. Before Lu Wu felt that he could compete with the heaven realm, he had to avoid all potential dangers in advance. After everything was done, a brand new life profession mentor who was proficient in formations, runes, and other life profession skills was born. His mind was filled with a huge amount of knowledge. Looking at Fu Bao, who was standing still with a slightly confused expression, Lu Wu nodded his head in satisfaction. He decided to transfer him to Africa to open up wastelands. Chapter 520. Serengeti Savannah. The hot sun was burning the earth, and under the blue sky, the huge wildebeest team was migrating north. July to September every year was the transition between the rainy season and the dry season in the East African grasslands. The rainy season in the Serengeti ended, the rain area moved north, the precipitation decreased, and the dry season arrived. This caused the Serengeti grasslands to gradually become a wasteland, and herbivores, including wildebeest, faced a growing survival crisis. At this time, the Masai Mara Nature Reserve in northern Kenya was in the rainy season, making this place the Garden of Eden of the entire East African grasslands. During this time, the wildebeest followed the pace of the rain, traveling day and night, avoiding the attacks of many natural enemies. They moved more than 40 kilometers a day, migrating north to the Masai Mara in Kenya, a distance of about 3,000 kilometers. The migration process was very dangerous because they would step on the territory of many fierce beasts. This stage was also the time for all the beasts on the grasslands to hunt. Lions, leopards, hyenas, crocodiles, and so on, these fierce predators were ready to eat and eat during this time. At this time, in a corner of the prairie, nearly 100 wildebeest were running toward the migrating group. Behind them, the pride followed closely, looking for a single wildebeest with bloodthirsty eyes, ready to pounce and launch a fatal blow at any time. Hunting was an instinct for this group of top predators on the prairie, and their hunting skills were repeatedly tempered as they grew up. Because the price of a mistake was starvation, they were very familiar with how to catch prey. While driving the wildebeest group away from the main group, the lioness's eyes were still constantly scanning the wildebeest group, looking at the few small and thin cubs. Compared to the adult wildebeest, the cubs were undoubtedly the best targets to hunt. Moreover, it was not easy to be accidentally injured when hunting cubs. At this time, the hunt began. A lioness suddenly roared, and the other lionesses around the wildebeest group rushed toward the wildebeest group at the same time. As herbivores, the group of wildebeest was actually fully capable of competing with the lions, but they did not have the courage to fight. Facing the lions, they suddenly panicked, and the running formation suddenly collapsed. This was also what the lions wanted to see, and several wildebeest were immediately pounced on by the lionesses. Out of habit, after the lions pounced on their prey, the first target to bite was the wildebeest's throat, which was also a fatal part. At this moment, this scene is being filmed by a camera not far away. As one of the major migratory landscapes on the prairie, many photographers would come here to take photos during this time every year. The thrilling journey of the wildebeest migration could really create a lot of viewership for them. However, this job was also very dangerous. That was because there were too many ferocious predators on the prairie. Even with a lot of protection, one could lose their life if they were not careful. Similarly, high risk brings high returns. Therefore, every year, there would still be many photographers who came to film documentaries or to gather materials. At this moment, the scene of lions hunting wildebeests was the selling point they wanted to see. A few photographers crawling not far away immediately focused on filming the scene of the lions displaying their superb hunting skills. This hunt was very fast-paced. A large number of wildebeest escaped, but 4 wildebeest were killed on the spot. The scene was thrilling, and the cameramen who captured the scene were very excited, because these clips could bring them fame and money. After hunting, the female lions did not eat. Instead, they bit their prey and started to return. As a social animal, lions were different from many other animal groups. Although it was the female lions who went out to hunt, the female lions did not have the right to eat first. The lion guarding the territory was the leader of the pride, and only it had the right to eat first. Only when the lion was full would it be time for the female lions to eat. The rules of eating were very strict. At this moment, although the female lions had hunted 4 wildebeest and the lion would definitely not be able to finish them, the female lions still chose to bring the food back. This was because, under normal circumstances, the lion would be picky when eating and choose the delicious parts to eat. Unless there was a shortage of food, the lion would definitely satisfy his taste first. Therefore, the lion had the right to eat first for these 4 wildebeest. He had a harem of 3,000 beauties, and even sent them out to work to support himself. In this aspect, the lion performed brilliantly. He was like a fighter jet among scumbags. Of course, in reality, the lion also had a heavy responsibility. It was not very easy because the lion's mission was to defend its territory, protect its tribe, and protect its descendants. There was the risk of death in every battle. However, without the arrival of the old king next door, the lion's life was extremely comfortable in an absolutely safe situation. At this moment, the female lions dragged the dead wildebeest and started to turn back. Unfortunately, the direction in which the female lions turned back happened to be where the photographers were hiding. At this moment, the photographers, who had been very happy previously, broke out in cold sweat, because they knew very well what the consequences would be if they were discovered. They immediately put down the camera and crawled on the ground, hoping that something terrible would not happen. As they got closer, the heavy breathing of the female lions could be heard clearly. At this moment, the photographers were also extremely nervous, their hearts beating uncontrollably. At this moment, a female lion walking in front of the team suddenly cast her sharp gaze at the weeds not far away. Although the smell of blood in her mouth was very strong, she still smelled a different smell. The female lion immediately put down the prey in her mouth and approached the grass pile. As top predators, they were not afraid of any opponents on this grassland, so they were not worried about the existence of danger. The sound of breathing gradually approached. At this moment, the few photographers crawling on the ground already had the scene of them being brutally bitten in their minds. Before it happened, they were already scared silly by their own brains. After approaching the grass pile, the female lion sniffed hard twice, as if she was judging the location of the smell. After confirming the location, the female lion slowly lowered her head. Right at this moment, several loud roars suddenly came from not far away. Ah, wuru! The female lion immediately took a step back vigilantly and turned to look in the direction of the sound. She saw a group of local natives holding wooden spears, wearing crowns on their heads, and wearing beast-tooth ornaments around their neck. They were running towards them. At the same time as they ran towards them, the natives uttered threatening cries from their mouth. This scene really frightened the many female lions present. They started to retreat vigilantly. At this moment, more than 20 local natives increased their speed. Their actions were even more exaggerated and their cries were even louder. The female lions were clearly frightened. They put down their prey and started to roar at the natives, letting out threatening roars. However, this group of natives was clearly very experienced. Not only were they not scared off, they also roared and confronted the female lions. Snatching food from the lion/'s mouth was a dangerous action that the local natives often did. Hundreds of years ago, this action was for survival. Snatching the necessary meat from the lion/'s mouth was far easier than hunting by themselves. Although it was dangerous, it could often bring them rich rewards. However, in modern times, even the natives on the African grassland had more or less come into contact with some modern technology. Their source of food was no longer single. Snatching food from the lion/'s mouth was more like a tribal culture and a symbol of warriors. During the Great Migration season, it was also the time for the native tribes to prove their courage. They would form their own teams and perform the scene of their ancestors playing against ferocious beasts hundreds of years ago. This was to prove their courage, and also a culture to worship their ancestors. This was just like how even now many African cannibal tribes still had the behavior of eating humans, but they had actually given up on eating real humans. Instead, they ate plants that were made into human shapes to continue an ancient legacy. At this moment, more than 20 tribal men raised their spears and continued to provoke the female lions. They were betting that the female lions did not dare to resist and did not really want to fight the female lions. Because if they really fought, they would definitely die. After a series of roars and deterrents, as the distance closed, the natives lined up and slowed down. The female lions were still retreating, clearly unwilling to abandon their food and leave. The natives' /footsteps were very firm, suppressing the female lions in terms of aura. Even though the female lions bared their teeth, dug the ground, and made several deterrent actions, their steps were still firm. At this moment, a native man suddenly rushed out of the team and pounced at the female lions. This action immediately frightened the female lions. They hurriedly abandoned their prey, turned around, and ran a few meters away. Roar! 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 Realizing that he had scared the pride away, the man immediately roared excitedly. Seeing this, his companions also approached at this moment. At this moment, the food that originally belonged to the female lions fell into the hands of this group of natives. However, the confrontation was not over yet. The female lions roared unwillingly and started to circle around the natives. The natives started to pick up the stones on the ground and throw them at the female lions, wanting to scare them away. This confrontation was undoubtedly long. The female lions were very unfamiliar with humans, and this kind of creature was not on their prey list. The vigilance of cats made them not dare to act rashly. The natives also used this to deal with the female lions and even took the initiative to threaten them. In this kind of confrontation, the most important thing was aura. Otherwise, if the female lions realized that you were very weak, they would pounce on you without hesitation. The natives were clearly very experienced in how to confront lions. This was because this was also a skill passed down from generation to generation by their ancestors. They knew how to maximize their aura and scare the ferocious lions. As the confrontation continued, the night gradually darkened. Rays of light filled the sky. At this moment, the grassland had the most primitive ecological beauty. The wind that blew over was not as bone-piercing as winter, nor as dry as autumn, nor was it as hot as the morning. Countless grass swayed in the breeze, quiet and peaceful. However, in a corner of the grassland, the confrontation had not ended. The unwilling female lions went forward several times, but they were still scared back. As the night darkened, the skin of the natives was like an invisibility cloak, gradually blending into the night. Only the white teeth that were occasionally revealed proved that there were people here. At this moment they lit torches. To the female lions, the flickering flames seemed to be constantly releasing danger signals. At this moment the natives started to move. They took the initiative to hold the torches and started to chase the female lions away. At this moment, an overly frightened lioness suddenly launched an attack on one of the natives. Seeing this scene, all the natives' hearts were in their throats. This was because as long as the female lions successfully bit their companion, it meant that the female lions knew their true strength. The consequences would be very terrifying. At this moment, the native man who had taken the initiative to scare the lion took a step forward and let out a beast-like roar. He punched the female lion's head from the side. This punch was powerful and heavy, causing the lioness who had just opened her mouth to tilt her head and fall to the ground. Then, she hurriedly jumped up and took a few steps back. Seeing this scene, all the natives heaved a sigh of relief, because they knew that the crisis was temporarily resolved. The female lions were obviously also frightened by this scene. When they were chased away again, they were like frightened cats and kept retreating. After a stalemate like this for a while, the female lions finally gave up on their prey and turned to leave. Victory was here. All the natives raised their wooden spears and started to cheer. However, just as they were about to drag the wildebeests back to the tribe, a few men with cameras suddenly crawled out from the haystack at the side. At this moment, the natives who could remain calm in the face of the lions almost had a heart attack. "Thank you very much for your help." The few cameramen were in tears at this moment. This feeling of escaping from death was a real experience that was far more painful and unforgettable than watching it on television or in movies. Just now, when they thought that they would be discovered by the female lions, they even felt that they were about to suffocate. After escaping from death, there was an indescribable excitement in their hearts. At this moment, the man who had just punched the female lion asked curiously, "Why are you guys hiding here?" "We are from XX TV station. We want to shoot a documentary, so we came to the prairie. We almost died just now. Thank you very much." The leading cameraman expressed his gratitude again. The cameramen weren't surprised that they could communicate with the native. This was because it was already more than 2,300 years ago, so it was very normal for many Aboriginal tribes to use modern technology. "You're welcome, friend from afar," the man replied with a grin. By the way, I think I saw you defeat a lion with one punch. How did you do that? The leading cameraman asked curiously. Before the man could explain, his companion took the lead and said, "He's the strongest warrior in our tribe. He's the ancestral leopard hero, Chara." Ancestral leopard hero? Through the afterglow of the torch, they saw the tattoo of a leopard on the chest of the man known as the first warrior with some kind of paint. This leopard didn't look crude. Instead, as its body trembled, it seemed lifelike. It was as if there really was a ferocious leopard crawling on the man's chest, adding a wild and valiant aura to the native man. "Did you train your strength by yourself?" the photographer asked again after staring at the tattoo on the native man's chest. "No, it was bestowed by the ancestral leopard," the man replied proudly. The cameraman was stunned for a few seconds. After thinking about it, he still nodded. He was afraid that he would be brutally beaten to death if he questioned it. Chapter 521. Prairie Saint Man Tribe. Under the starry night sky, a bonfire was lit in the Saint Man tribe. The younger generation of the tribe, led by Chara, had successfully snatched food from the lion's mouth and officially completed their coming-of-age ceremony. At this moment, the tribe was holding a celebration ceremony. In the open space in the center of the tribe, 4 wildebeest were strung on the bonfire with their spoils of war. The tribal chief was holding a stone bowl filled with blood, muttering and dipping his index finger in the blood from time to time, blessing and crowning the warriors of this year. Around them, the enthusiastic and unrestrained indigenous people sang and danced, celebrating the birth of the new warriors with primitive dances. The 3 photographers who were rescued this time were also smiling as they filmed this scene, recording the sacred moment of the Saint Man tribe. The coming-of-age ceremony continued, and the last one to receive the blessing of the chief was the ancestral leopard warrior, Chara. The chief walked in front of him, and Chara immediately lowered his head, waiting for the blessing. The chief dipped his index finger in the stone bowl and drew a circle on Chara's forehead, then turned to the surroundings and shouted, "The last blessing, to the youngest ancestral leopard warrior of the Saint Man tribe, and also the strongest warrior of the Saint Man tribe, Chara." As the chief's voice fell, the tribe suddenly boiled up, and all the indigenous people began to cheer, offering their blessings and enthusiasm to the ancestral leopard warrior. At this moment, the faces of the 3 photographers also showed a smile. In this new era, it was very valuable to see such an ancient ceremony. The Saint Man tribe's carnival also began at this moment. The 3 photographers also put down the estrangement in their hearts and integrated into the uplifting atmosphere of the Saint Man tribe, celebrating the coming-of-age ceremony of Chara and others. The carnival lasted until 2 o'clock in the morning. During this period, various programs continued, such as wrestling between warriors, the prayers of the tribal priests, and so on. The ancient culture of the Saint Man tribe gave the 3 photographers an illusion that they had traveled to the tribal era. At this moment, the 3 photographers had an idea in their minds. They originally came to the African prairie to photograph the migration of the wildebeest tribe, but in contrast, it was obvious that the customs of the Saint Man tribe were far more attractive than the migration of the wildebeest. After this idea appeared, it could not be erased. Therefore, after the carnival ended, the leading photographer, Jack, found the chief of the Saint Man tribe and proposed the idea of staying to record the tribal life. In order to show his sincerity, Jack expressed to the tribal chief that he was willing to provide a sum of money to support the development of the tribe. The tribal chief did not reject this request and readily agreed to it. This undoubtedly made Jack and the others very happy. After spending a night in the tribe, they drove their rented caravan to the Holy Man tribe the next day. This RV was the supply station that Jack and the others used to film on the prairie. There were many equipment and food supplies stored inside. After that, Jack and the others stayed in the Holy Man tribe and recorded the life of the Holy Man tribesmen. Soon, Jack and the others became familiar with the people of the Holy Man tribe. As the days passed by, Jack would write a diary every day, recording everything he saw and heard. At the same time, he would also take the initiative to contact the people of the Holy Man tribe and learn about the ancient customs preserved by the tribe. Jack vaguely felt that this documentary about the Saint Man tribe would be a hit, so he was especially serious about the production. However, as he got deeper into contact with them, Jack discovered something that puzzled him. Chara, who was known as the ancestral leopard warrior in the tribe, was very different from the other clansmen in the tribe. Rather than calling this ancestral leopard warrior a human, Jack felt that it was more appropriate to call him a beast. With speed and strength far beyond that of a human, and even the intuition of a beast, Chara's mysteriousness deeply attracted Jack. In addition to curiosity, Jack also wanted to know more about this ancestral leopard warrior and his secret. Jack first asked the people of the tribe about this, wanting to get some useful information from them. However, their answers were very uniform. They all said that the Holy Man tribe's ancestral totem, the ancestral leopard, gave Chara the power to protect the continuation of the tribe. Jack felt helpless about this answer. After all, this was the 24th century, and he believed in science. He didn't believe this kind of completely deified ancestor's words. However, in Jack's view, this ancestral leopard warrior was an important part of the documentary. He must carefully understand this person. Therefore, in the next few days, Jack deliberately approached Chara and took the initiative to talk to him. It had to be said that Chara's appearance was very different from that of the people of the Holy Man tribe. He was nearly 2 meters tall, with solid muscles all over his body and a valiant aura. Especially under the sun, his dark muscles seemed to be cast out of steel, exuding a wild aura. When facing Chara, Jack felt that he was facing a ferocious beast and was somewhat on edge. However, Chara didn't have any hostility towards Jack. Faced with Jack's initiative, he didn't resist. Because Jack had given the tribe a sum of money that could be used to exchange goods with the outside world, as the tribe's guardian, he was grateful to Jack from the bottom of his heart. On this day, Jack once again found Chara, who was sitting on a big rock at the entrance of the tribe, facing the sun with his eyes closed. "Good morning, Chara." Jack, who was holding a pen and paper, greeted him first. Hearing this, Chara opened his eyes. Even though it wasn't the first time he saw his aggressive and fierce eyes, it still gave Jack a scare. "Hello, Jack." Chara responded awkwardly, obviously not used to this way of greeting. At this time, Jack skillfully climbed up the big rock and sat opposite Chara. "Chara, today I want to know about the situation of your ancestral totem, ancestral leopard. Is it convenient for you to talk to me?" Chara didn't answer and just nodded. He had long been used to Jack's daily harassment. During this period of time, Jack would basically interview him for about an hour every day. Although Chara was very helpless, he still chose to accept it. "Please begin." At this time, Jack opened his notebook and said while holding the pen. Chara nodded. "The ancestral leopard is the totem of our tribe, and also the guardian of our tribe when it was founded. It was also because of the existence of the ancestral leopard that the weak Holy Man tribe was able to flourish and gradually strengthen on this prairie." Swish, swish, swish. After Jack recorded what Chara said, he raised his head and asked, "I would like to ask, is the ancestral leopard a kind of ancient creature?" When he asked this question, Jack suddenly felt a little timid, afraid that his words would violate the taboo of the Holy Man tribe, and then be torn apart by this ancestral leopard warrior in front of him. Chara didn't have any resistance towards this question, and nodded. It was once the top predator on this prairie, one of the most powerful overlords. It had a long lifespan, almost immortal, and incomparably powerful strength. Its speed was like lightning, and its sharp claws could tear apart any enemy who dared to provoke it. Although he recorded this, Jack didn't approve of the existence of such a creature. In his heart, he didn't approve of the existence of such a creature at all. In Jack's opinion, Chara's description was completely exaggerated. It had a long lifespan, almost immortal, and was as fast as lightning. Was it filming a fantasy movie? Of course, he still had to at least show some respect, and he didn't have the guts to go against it. At this moment, Chara suddenly spoke with a strange expression. "Jack, do you not believe what I said?" "No, I believe it." Jack was shocked, and immediately expressed his absolute belief. "I've come into contact with the lives of you outsiders, so I understand how you think. I know that you don't believe in such things, but I have to tell you that the ancestral leopard really exists, and it is precisely it that gave me such great strength." Looking at Chara's solemn expression, Jack felt ashamed. After thinking for a while, he gritted his teeth and asked, "Chara, before coming to the prairie, I learned about this prairie. In the existing information, there is no record of a creature like the ancestral leopard at all. Neither fossils nor traces of its existence have been found." As he said this, Jack leaned back, preparing to be beaten. However, at this moment Chara sighed. "There is only one ancestral leopard, so you naturally can't find its fossil. Moreover, the ancestral leopard only abandoned its body, and the real one still exists in our tribe." These words made Jack a little dumbfounded. What does it mean by abandoning its body, but still living? As if seeing through Jack's doubts, Chara continued. "According to the stories passed down from generation to generation in the Holy Man tribe, the ancestral leopard began to age little by little because of the changes in the world. In the end, the ancestral leopard told my ancestors that its body could no longer absorb nutrients from the outside world to support the operation of its body. Therefore, the ancestral leopard chose to abandon its body and continue to stay in the Holy Man tribe in the form of a soul." "What do you mean? The ancestral leopard is still in the tribe?" Thinking of this, Jack hurriedly asked. "Yes," Chara said without hesitation. "Where is it? Can you take me to see it?" Jack's curiosity was immediately overflowing. In this line of work, he was extremely sensitive to any selling point. If he could discover a new species because of this, his name would go down in history. Although he did not believe in the theory of abandoning the body to live in the form of a soul, such a legend was a selling point. It would be perfect if he could find the remains of an ancient creature that he had never seen before. No, the ancestral leopard is a sacred guardian. Only the warriors of the Holy Man tribe who are recognized by it can see it. Chara immediately refused Jack's request. This undoubtedly made Jack feel very disappointed. Saying such incredible things, but not letting him see it, it was simply whetting his appetite. Of course, the ancestral leopard that Jack thought should be the remains of an animal. As for the fact that the soul was still alive, it was completely a belief created by the Holy Man tribe's own imagination and deification. However, Chara's strength was really inconceivable to him. Lifting a boulder with one hand, running faster than a cheetah, all these abilities that exceeded the limits of the human body made Jack feel that Chara should be a genetic mutation and had nothing to do with the ancestral leopard. It was precisely because of this that the Holy Man tribe recognized Chara as the ancestral leopard warrior. For things that he did not understand, Jack felt that he had more or less understood the truth. As if seeing that Jack did not believe it, Chara suddenly said, "Jack, if one day the world we live in is destroyed, leaving only a few thousand people alive, and these survivors form a tribe, when their descendants are born, all the technology in the world has disappeared. However, these people who survived the technological era will tell their descendants about the technological world before it was destroyed, such as the planes that could soar in the sky like birds, and the steel ships that could sail in the sea. Although they have not seen it, their descendants will believe what their parents have said. However, it will be passed down from generation to generation. After thousands of years, the descendants will inevitably no longer believe these things, because they have not seen it. Moreover, they will feel that all of this is the imagination of their ancestors, thinking that it is impossible for there to be a steel plane that can fly in the sky, right? Hearing this, Jack was stunned. He could not refute these words, and he did not expect Chara to say such profound words. Jack thought for a moment and was about to answer when his cell phone rang. Jack immediately took out his cell phone from his pocket and glanced at the text message. Jack, Battle Africa has finally started. End your documentary journey as soon as possible. Haha, I will start my battle first, waiting for you to come back. Seeing this text message, Jack was pleasantly surprised. As a photographer based in Africa, there were few pleasures in life, and gaming was one of them. In the game, the one that he looked forward to the most was undoubtedly Battle Online. Although this game had not been released to the African region, its popularity was unstoppable in Africa. On major game video portals, exciting game video clips and battle highlights were extremely popular. Coupled with the unlimited freedom of the world structure and so on, all these deeply attracted a game enthusiast like him. However, Battle Online had never thought of opening the server, and he was in the African region, so he could only wait bitterly. From time to time, he would go to the forums of other servers to vent his anger by scolding BattleDog's official discrimination against Africa. At this moment, seeing this message, Jack was shocked. Superhuman abilities, a bizarre and dazzling world, and a 100% realistic game world were more attractive to him than this prairie. Thinking of this, Jack's face revealed a smile. Now that the Wi-Fi network had global coverage, even here, he could experience the charm of battle for the first time. This was because he had brought his virtual reality helmet, and it was lying quietly in the limousine. Chapter 522. Chara, let's end our conversation here. I still have something to do. See you tomorrow. Thinking of this, Jack closed his notebook and said with a smile. Chara nodded. He felt very helpless towards Jack. He had been in contact with the outside world and knew that the people outside did not believe in the so-called totems and God. They always liked to use science to explain everything. Although there was nothing wrong with this, after all, this was the era of science and technology, as he said before, future generations would not believe things that they had not seen before. And the era that ancestral leopard lived in was the mythological era, passed down from generation to generation. Those who did not see all this would naturally not believe it, and no matter how they tried to explain it, it would be useless. Moreover, he could not bring Jack to meet ancestral leopard. Verbal descriptions were not convincing at all. In the following 2 days, what surprised Chara was that Jack didn't come to interview her again. This seemed slightly unusual. Of course, without any harassment, Chara was happy to have peace and quiet, and her days returned to normal. In the morning, he faced the sun and breathed in and out, feeling the power of the sun. At night, he faced the moon and absorbed the power of the moon, continuously solidifying his ancestral leopard totem. This was the method the ancestral leopard had given him to become stronger. He relied on the purest power of the sun and moon to strengthen his body. According to ancestral leopard, the world was once filled with a large amount of energy that was purer than the essence of the sun and moon. However, this kind of energy was decreasing day by day, and ancestral leopard did not have this kind of energy. Just relying on the essence of the sun and moon could not sustain the consumption of his powerful physical body, so he chose to abandon his physical body. Finally, he left his consciousness on the totem pole of the clan, continuing to protect the people of the Holy Man clan. At the same time, every few hundred years, the ancestral leopard would choose a newborn child from the tribe to become a new ancestral leopard warrior. The child would learn from it how to absorb the power of the sun and the moon, as well as comprehend its fighting technique. After these children were chosen as ancestral leopard warriors, they could live for more than 300 years, guarding the Holy Man tribe until they died. In this generation, he was the new ancestral leopard warrior, the new guardian of the Holy Man tribe. Since the age of 10, Chara had been able to wrestle with the most ferocious beasts. Until now, even elephants were no match for him in terms of strength. He was the strongest warrior on the prairie. However, at the same time that he obtained great power, there was also a drawback. The beastly nature in his body often made it difficult for him to control himself. He had even almost attacked his clansmen. All of this deeply troubled Chara. For this, he sought the help of the ancestral leopard. According to ancestral leopard, the beast was not willing to be imprisoned. The life in the tribe had imprisoned the beastly nature in his body. The more he suppressed it, the more painful it would be. However, the wildness in his body did not need to be suppressed at all. Instead, it needed to be vented by fighting to its heart's content. However, in this era of declining spirit energy, there were no wild beasts that could compete with him at all, including the overlord of the grassland, the lion. How could it fight to its heart's content? For this reason, Chara chose to suppress the beastly nature in her body. If he could avoid fighting, he would try his best not to, because fighting would nourish the beastly nature in his body. This was also the reason why during the coming-of-age ceremony where the lion snatched food from the lion's mouth, he had only accompanied them and only intervened at the most critical moment. And meditating every day was also a way for him to kill his beastly nature. On the one hand, in order to protect the tribe, he needed to continue to grow stronger. He needed to be prepared to deal with any unknown dangers, so that he could take precautions. On the other hand, in order to control the raging beastly nature in his body, he needed to keep himself calm. The coexistence of this animal nature and human nature made Chara very painful. However, he carried the mission of protecting the tribe, and was the tribe's ancestral leopard warrior. No matter how painful it was, he had to grit his teeth and persevere. Often on the night of the full moon, when he was in pain, he would roar at the sky to vent the endless desire to fight in his heart. At this moment, standing on the huge rock at the entrance of the tribe and looking at the full moon in the sky, Chara felt that the beastly nature in his body had begun to boil again. He slowly crawled on the ground, and with a sudden force from his limbs, his body shot up. Roar! This jump brought him more than 10 meters high. The moment his body reached the apex, Chara opened his mouth and let out a loud and clear roar at the moon. His arms, which had grown sharp claws, suddenly waved at the moon to vent. The moment his body landed, Chara suddenly swept his gaze to the side. Not far away, Jack, who was walking over, was dumbfounded. Just now, he saw Chara jump more than 10 meters high. What kind of concept was this? The human body's limit for a vertical jump was only a little more than 1 meter. This was not just exceeding the human body's limit, it was practically superhuman. However, at this moment, Chara's gaze was extremely frightening, like a wild beast on the hunt. That gaze seemed to want to swallow him alive, causing Jack to feel timid. Roar! Chara, who had landed on the ground, moved his limbs, and pounced toward him like a bolt of black lightning. It's over! Jack's heart was pounding. Just as Chara was about to get close to Jack, Chara's gaze flickered, and he suddenly inserted his arms into the ground, stopping the inertia of his body. Then, his body soared into the air, and he landed steadily after a somersault in the air. Looking at Chara, who was squatting on the ground with a pained expression, Jack was extremely afraid, but he still plucked up his courage to ask, "Chara, are you all right? Stay away from me, I'm feeling terrible." Chara growled with a pained expression. At this moment, Chara's voice had obviously changed. It was deep and rough, like a wild beast, scaring Jack once again. Jack had wanted to continue asking, but seeing Chara's pupils shrink into the shape of a needle, he thought for a moment, then turned around and ran. The next morning, after fighting for an entire night, Jack, driven by curiosity, once again arrived in front of the huge rock at the entrance of the tribe. At this moment, Chara was still sitting on the huge rock, his naked upper body covered in red scratches. After thinking for a moment, Jack took 2 steps forward and asked softly, "Chara, are you all right?" Chara opened his eyes at this moment, and turned to look at Jack. At this moment, his eyes were still bloodshot, but he shook his head indifferently. "I'm fine. Your body." Jack looked at the dense scratch marks on Chara's body, and could not help but ask again. "I'm fine, they will fade very soon. My body has a strong recovery ability." "Can you tell me what exactly happened? You were so scary last night." After confirming that Chara had returned to normal, Jack asked out of curiosity. Chara did not hide anything from Jack's inquiry. Having grown up in this grassland, Chara did not have any thoughts of hiding or deceiving. Towards anything, there was only acceptance and rejection. Faced with Jack's inquiry, Chara calmly told him about how he was troubled by his beastly nature. To Jack, these words were simply bullsh*t. What beastly nature is hard to control? Isn't this a *king line from a stupid movie? But thinking of how Chara had leaped more than 10 meters high last night, wasn't this a scene that only appeared in movies? At this moment, Jack suddenly somewhat believed in Chara's experience. However, these things were after all too mysterious, and Jack still held a skeptical attitude. However, Chara did not seem like a person who would lie. As Jack listened to his narration, especially the pain that Chara had endured when his beastly nature broke out again and again, he suddenly felt sympathy for him. "Chara, do you need a beast that can fight with you?" Jack suddenly asked at this moment. "As long as it is a creature that can fight with me to my heart's content, I'm fine, but I can't find such an opponent." As he spoke, a trace of loneliness appeared in Chara's eyes. "Why don't I bring you back to my place? There's an underground boxing venue in the area where I live, and you can vent your desire to fight there." After thinking about it, Jack immediately suggested, "I won't leave the Holy Man tribe, I'm the guardian here." Chara immediately shook his head and refused. He clearly knew how terrifying his strength was. Putting aside the fact that he would not leave the tribe, it was even more of a joke to fight in an underground boxing venue. This was because humans could not possibly be his opponent at all. On the contrary, a weak opponent would make it harder for him to control his beastly nature. Sooner or later, he would accidentally kill someone, until he was completely controlled by his beastly nature. Upon hearing this, Jack could not help but think of the shocking leap he saw yesterday. With that kind of explosive power, fighting in a boxing match was simply a massacre. Wouldn't that be 1 punch per person? Is there no other way? Jack could not help but frown as he asked again. This time, Chara did not answer and only shook his head indifferently. Upon seeing this, Jack also sighed. All of this was indeed unfathomable, but faced with such a problem, he did not have the slightest solution. After all, how could there be an opponent in this world that could compete with a non-human existence like Chara? Even the athletes in the Olympic Games, the highest sports event of mankind, did not have such a terrifying physical strength like Chara. At this moment Jack suddenly froze. There was no such thing in this world, but there was in another world. He suddenly thought of the battle, and also of the individual competition, qualifiers of various servers that had recently started in the battle. There was a 100% degree of realism in the battle, and there was no difference from reality. In that world, Chara could completely fight to his heart's content and freely release his beastly nature. "Chara, I think I have a way to help you." Upon hearing this, Chara immediately shook his head. With regards to Jack's good intentions, he could only say that he appreciated it. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Jack's courting death would evoke the beastly nature in his body, and he would lose control and kill Jack. "Chara, come with me, I'll bring you to a place that can definitely help you." Jack shouted excitedly again. "I will not leave the Holy Man tribe." Chara firmly rejected Jack's good intentions once again. "You don't have to leave, it's the limousine that I parked in your tribe, it's right there." Realizing that Chara seemed to have misunderstood something, Jack hurriedly explained. This limousine was also where Jack and the other two photographers lived every day. Chara was not unfamiliar with this limousine, but he did not understand what releasing his beastly nature had to do with the limousine. "Come with me, I won't lie to you. Do you know about the battle? 2 days ago, the non-server was just opened, and it's a 100% degree of realism world. That place can definitely help you." Although he did not really understand, Chara still nodded helplessly, feeling that Jack's pestering had returned. Jumping off the boulder, Chara followed Jack to the center of the Holy Man tribe. The limousine was parked there with a solar panel installed on the roof. Chara followed Jack into the limousine, where various instruments and wires were intertwined in a messy manner. At this time, Jack picked up the virtual reality helmet that was placed on the bed and passed it to Chara. While Chara was still stunned, Jack began to explain how to use the virtual reality helmet and popularize the game, Battle. All of these made Chara confused, but he decisively asked about the parts that he did not understand. Jack was very patient as he explained them one by one. After a while, after making sure that Chara had understood how to use the virtual reality helmet, Jack personally helped Chara put on the virtual reality helmet. When the virtual interface appeared in front of Chara, he followed Jack's instructions and clicked on the battle icon on the interface. At this moment, a game notification appeared. "Welcome to Battle Online, start your journey in the game." Chapter 523. Although Chara knew about some of the modern technological products outside of the Holy Man tribe, it was his first time coming into contact with virtual equipment. After entering the game, Chara looked down at the land of Black Wind, where the unaffiliated server was located. He was completely stunned by the scene in front of him. The world beneath his feet was so real that he could not even tell if it was real or not. After more than 10 minutes of looking down and moving forward, the initial scene ended, and the class selection menu appeared in front of Chara. The class selection menu of the unaffiliated server was completely different from that of the original server, the European server, the Infernal server, and the Asian server. This was because there were many choices of classes in the unaffiliated server, and the direction of development was more varied. At this moment, Chara appeared outside a magnificent golden palace. Around him, there were stone pillars that reached into the sky, and each stone pillar was engraved with a painting. There was an ancient tree with lush foliage and 9 golden crows circling in the sky, a ferocious-looking 3-headed white wolf that was covered in flames, a golden lion that roared at the sky, and so on. There were a total of 8 pillars that reached into the sky, each corresponding to a different totem. Chara was the first to look at a green tree-shaped totem on his left. Immediately, a scene appeared in front of him. On the ground, a gigantic tree stood in the middle, thousands of branches and leaves hanging down. As they shook gently with the wind, the ground suddenly trembled. A vast and ancient aura rushed toward him, as if this tree had been standing here for a long time, weathered by the wind and frost of time. At the top of the tree, 9 golden crows were circling with their wings spread, their long golden tails like ribbons. They looked unusually handsome, adding a holy aura to this ancient tree. At this moment, information about this ancient tree appeared. Bronze God Tree Totem. Totem information, Nature Totem. Players who choose this totem as their faith will follow the path of nature as their main growth direction. Totem characteristics: 5 self-healing, support, control, summoning, healing. Totem growth: weak in the early stages, well-rounded in the later stages, and extremely strong potential. Looking at the introduction of the Bronze God Tree, Chara was curious, and immediately turned to look at the pillar on the right. Immediately, images related to this totem appeared. It was still on that boundless withered yellow land. A male lion was chasing its prey. The mane on its neck shone with a golden light like the sun, piercing one's eyes, and its entire body exuded the domineering aura of a king. As it opened its mouth and inhaled, all the escaping creatures in front of it were swept up by an invisible suction force and rushed into its mouth. The suction force grew stronger and stronger. The flowers, grass, trees, and even the clouds in the sky were pulled into the lion's mouth by this irresistible suction force. Roar! A furious roar that shook the heavens rang out like a clap of thunder, and the ground trembled. Sky-swallowing lion, totem. Totem information, beast-type totem. Possesses racial talent, devour. Can help player grow faster in the early stages of the game. Totem characteristics: 7 spellcasting talent, devour growth, control, life enhancement, defense, agility, bestiality. This is related to the player's personality and is not easily triggered. Once triggered, combat power percentage increases. Totem growth. The sky-swallowing lion's main growth is inclined towards spellcasting, and its close combat ability is equally good. The introduction of these totems immediately piqued Chara's interest, and he began to examine the totems on the sky pillar one by one. 3-headed white wolf, soaring cloud dragon, celestial moon, nimble mantis. The characteristics of each totem's growth were different, and they all had their own tendencies. The characteristics of these labels also explained the types of these totems, and helped the players better understand the tendencies of different totems. For example, players who liked sorcerers could choose the sky-swallowing lion, players who liked support types could choose the celestial moon, players who liked close combat could choose the 3-headed white wolf or the nimble mantis, and players who liked comprehensive development in the later stages could choose the ancient bronze tree. Not only did different totems have different growth directions, but they also had their own racial talents and skills. The selection of the start of the game was undoubtedly the most complicated among the 5 main servers, and the growth of different totems had a huge difference. Just the question of how to choose a class had caused an uproar in the forum of the non-server. Everyone was discussing which class was the strongest and how to choose. After all, the unique feature of the campaign was that players couldn't delete their accounts, and they couldn't restart. The choice of the start was too important for all the players who were about to start the campaign. According to a player who had chosen the wrong class in the original server, choosing a character at the start of the game was equivalent to reincarnation. If one chose a class that didn't match one's character, then one could only cry, and regret would be useless. The non-server players who had read the strategy guides in the original server and the European server and were well prepared became very cautious when it came to choosing their starting class. They specially went to the original server, the European server, and the other old servers to ask for the help of the veteran players, hoping to get some class analysis and reference suggestions. In the early stages of the launch of the non-server, the influx of a large number of new non-server players brought great vitality to the campaign forum, and the forum's atmosphere was high. After reading the introduction of the totem on the 8 heavenly pillars, Chara didn't make a choice, but frowned instead. According to the introduction of the totem selection, the totem was the belief after entering the game. This was completely unacceptable to Chara. This was because he was a member of the Holy Man tribe, and there was only one totem that he believed in, and that was the ancestral leopard. Although it was a game, as an ancestral leopard warrior, his belief was rooted in his heart. To him, this choice of belief was disrespectful to the ancestral leopard, and even a betrayal. Out of curiosity, Chara actually wanted to enter the game world to have a look, but he was undoubtedly stuck at the stage of choosing the totem. After some hesitation, Chara sighed, clicked on the function panel, and gave up on continuing to play. Just as he was about to quit the game, he suddenly realized that there was an additional totem creation function in the function panel. He was sure that this function didn't exist before. After being stunned for a moment, Chara clicked on the totem creation function out of curiosity. Suddenly, the surrounding space began to distort, and the golden palace and the 8 heavenly pillars disappeared, replaced by a white world. The game notification sounded. Game notification. The area you are in is a creation space. Please imagine the totem that you want to create. Chara was stunned, obviously not expecting such a function to exist in the game. This was something that Jack had not explained to him before. Thinking of this, the image of the ancestral leopard immediately appeared in Chara's mind. While Chara was fantasizing, the silhouette of the ancestral leopard slowly appeared not far in front of him. The appearance of the ancestral leopard was similar to other felines, but it was more than 5 meters tall, with 2 purple lightning stripes from the corners of its mouth to the corners of its eyes. Its entire body was black, and the color of its skin was constantly changing during solidification. Sometimes it was colorful, sometimes it was monochrome. While Chara was creating the image of the ancestral leopard, Lu Wu, who was paying attention to the opening of the non-game server, smiled. Even he did not expect that he would find a real wall-level player at the opening of the server. Moreover, the most important thing was not Chara, but the totem behind him. Recently, Lu Wu had been collecting the remains of the gods in the heavenly realm, with the purpose of creating new totems, and continuously adding new totem options for the future updates of the non-game server. Therefore, the artifact's inspection of totems was especially strict. Therefore, the moment Chara entered the game, the artifact sent him a notification that a totem had been detected. Therefore, Lu Wu noticed Chara, and after some analysis and investigation, he also noticed the totem that Chara believed in, the ancestral leopard. Lu Wu did not know much about the ancestral leopard, but the all-knowing Lil Bailey was very clear about it. According to her, the ancestral leopard was an ancient mythical beast from the human world. It was extremely rare, but its growth potential was very huge. During the Battle of the Three Realms, Bailey thought that the ancestral leopard had been completely extinct, but she did not expect that there were still some left. This discovery made Lu Wu feel refreshed. Originally, Lu Wu wanted to immediately send Xiao Tian to the African region to bring the ancestral leopard. However, Bailey said that there was no need to go through so much trouble. After the artifact's inspection, it found that the ancestral leopard was only left with its soul, and it was too easy to get it into the artifact's space. Because the artifact could mobilize the 6 paths of reincarnation, it was an irresistible power for the soul-type creatures. Although the soul of the ancestral leopard was hidden in the depths of the Holy Man tribe and sealed itself with a barrier. However, now that the existence of the ancestral leopard was known through Chara, the artifact could easily summon it. Because the function of the barrier was to hide one's aura, as long as the location was determined, it was impossible to resist the 6 paths of reincarnation that could ignore any space and barrier. At this moment, in the Holy Man tribe, as the tribe's totem, the ancestral leopard's spiritual body was lying quietly in a space deep underground. At this moment, its eyes were closed, as if it was in a deep sleep. At this moment, it suddenly opened its eyes. Roar! Its sensitive 6th sense allowed it to detect the arrival of danger. This aura was strange yet familiar, and it could not help but tremble. 6 paths of reincarnation. When it confirmed that the aura came from the 6 paths of reincarnation, the ancestral leopard suddenly panicked. It hid here to avoid the detection of the 6 paths of reincarnation and be pulled into reincarnation. However, it did not expect the 6 paths of reincarnation to directly sense its existence. If it was pulled into the 6 paths of reincarnation and started the path of reincarnation, it knew what would happen to it. During the War of the Three Realms, it was just born, but it did not participate in the War of the Three Realms. Instead, it was turned into an egg by its parents and buried in the ground, sleeping for a long time. However, it still knew about the War of the Three Realms because its parents left it a memory inheritance. The ancestral leopard was a force of the human world. If it entered the 6 paths of reincarnation and was discovered by the heavenly forces that monitored the 3 realms, it would have no chance of survival, let alone reincarnation. Although the probability of being discovered was not high, it did not dare to take the risk. However, it did not expect that after hiding for so many years, this moment still came. At this time, a black light spot appeared in front of the ancestral leopard. This light spot kept rotating and expanding, and in the blink of an eye, it became as big as the ancestral leopard. A huge suction force came from it. The ancestral leopard roared unwillingly, trying to resist this suction force. However, even if it used all its strength, it still could not resist and was instantly pulled in. At this moment, there was only one thought in the ancestral leopard's mind: it's finished. The inheritance left in its mind told it that after the War of the Three Realms, the remaining people of the human world chose to go to the outer realm. It was not that they were afraid of death, but they were afraid of being tortured by the heavenly realm after death, unable to rise again. Because what the heavenly realm feared the most was always the power of the human world. They could tacitly tolerate the existence of the Een realm, which was far less powerful than the human world, but they would mercilessly strangle all the powers of the human world. As a species that had existed since the peak of the human world, it was also one of the powers that belonged to the human world. The ancestral leopard knew that it had entered the 6 paths of reincarnation, and its life and death were unpredictable. Thinking of this, the ancestral leopard struggled and resisted unwillingly. It let out a mournful howl, trying to get rid of the power from the 6 paths of reincarnation. "Stop howling, it's so noisy. Be quiet." At this time, a voice was heard. At the same time, the ancestral leopard suddenly felt the restraint on its body surface disappear, and then found itself in an unfamiliar space. Not far away, Lu Wu and Bailey were looking at it with disdain, especially the little one, who was covering her ears. The ancestral leopard was stunned. "This is not the 6 paths of reincarnation? Don't worry, this is not the bus to the 6 paths of reincarnation. You're taking the non-service bus to Battle Online. Have a good journey, this is the transit station," Lu Wu said with a smile. The ancestral leopard was even more confused. Chapter 524. Looking at Lu Wu's smiling face, ancestral leopard recovered from its state of panic and fell into confusion. In its inherited memory, there was a very detailed explanation of the aura of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Therefore, it was sure that the passage that it had just entered led to the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, it did not enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. Instead, it appeared in this strange space. Ancestral leopard was obviously puzzled. For some reason, ancestral leopard felt that Lu Wu, who was standing not far away, had a very familiar aura. Moreover, this aura was not as simple as being familiar. The feedback from the inheritance was more like a master, an elder ancestral leopard, who could not figure out the reason, was stunned. Its originally fierce face looked adorable. "Big cat, look, this cat is bigger than you. Go and shake its paw." Bailey pointed at ancestral leopard and urged it with a serious face. Lu Wu, who was originally smiling, suddenly darkened his face. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. "Who are you?" Ancestral leopard asked with a vigilant look. "We are not enemies but friends. Don't worry, I won't do anything to harm you." Lu Wu turned to look at ancestral leopard and said. His attitude towards ancestral leopard was completely different from how he treated the talisman treasure. Ancestral leopard was the power of the human world. They were originally from the same source. Ancestral leopard had never betrayed the human world. It had only been hiding in the human world to survive. If it weren't for the artifact detecting Chara this time, it was obvious that this ancestral leopard could have continued to live like a crouching demon, hiding until the end of time and the changes of the 3 worlds. In any case, ancestral leopard's bloodline had sacrificed too much for the human world. Lu Wu would naturally treat their descendants well. Thinking of this, Lu Wu said, "Ancestral leopard, I will tell you something now. However, after knowing everything, I must brand some taboos in your soul. It's not that I don't trust you, but for safety's sake, I can't afford to take the risk. But don't worry, I will never harm you." Facing ancestral leopard, Lu Wu said his name. Even Tong Gua and the others did not have such treatment. Until now, Tong Gua and the others did not know Lu Wu's name. After learning from Bailey about the story of ancestral leopard's bloodline dying in battle for the continuation of the human world, Lu Wu was full of respect for ancestral leopard. Now that he saw that there were still descendants of ancestral leopard, Lu Wu naturally wanted to treat them well. Can I not listen? Ancestral leopard looked at Lu Wu in shock. Lu Wu was speechless. How could this stupid leopard be so honest? The veins on Lu Wu's forehead bulged again as he looked at Bailey, who was covering her mouth and laughing. Are you going to hide in the African savannah forever? How long do you want to be buried underground? Lu Wu asked impatiently. I don't have a choice. I also want to go out and run, but it's too dangerous. Besides, I'm just a soul now. I don't have much power to protect myself. Ancestral leopard said gloomily. That's why I'm giving you a good place to go. It can even help you recover your physical body. Lu Wu immediately threw out his bait. Can I not go? Ancestral leopard continued to whisper. Look, what a straightforward big cat. Since we can't use the soft approach, let's use the hard approach. Once it knows the benefits, it'll change its mind. Bailey looked at Lu Wu and instigated. Lu Wu could not help but roll his eyes. Stupid leopard, I'm also a human. We're on the same side. Why would I lie to you? You're a human cultivator? Which faction are you from? Ancestral leopard was curious when he heard that. Looking at Lu Wu, the various cultivation factions of the human race that were described in the inheritance appeared in his mind. The way of the human emperor, Bailey said with a smug face. She could not help but put her hands on her waist. The human emperor. Ancestral leopard was stunned. He was obviously shocked. However, he could not help but grit his teeth, feeling that he had been deceived. At this moment, Lu Wu's hair was slowly soaked in gold. A heavy and distant aura emerged from his body. This aura was also recorded in ancestral leopard's inheritance. It was the way of the human emperor. At this moment, ancestral leopard's eyes widened. Daddy, Mommy, I'm seeing the human emperor. Stupid leopard, do you believe me now? Lu Wu said impatiently. Ancestral leopard did not answer this time. He knelt on the ground and lowered his body slowly. He lowered his head at Lu Wu. What are you doing? Lu Wu was shocked. The descendants of the human emperor are the rulers of the human world. Since you've inherited the way of the human emperor, you're the ruler of the human world. Ancestral leopard said in a deep voice. You're welcome, you're welcome. Lu Wu scratched his head in embarrassment. He felt a little embarrassed. Bailey could not help but roll her eyes. She looked at Lu Wu with disdain. I agree to any decision you make. My ancestral leopard bloodline was originally working for the Shao Yi human sovereign. Now that the human sovereign is gone, you are the new human sovereign. Ancestral leopard spoke again. Looking at ancestral leopard who was kneeling on the ground, Lu Wu felt embarrassed. Moreover, he did not have any intention of becoming the human emperor. He just wanted to be a boss behind the scenes. Get up. I'll tell you about the current situation and your upcoming mission. Lu Wu nodded and gestured for ancestral leopard to get up. Ancestral leopard immediately got up. However, this time, the way it looked at Lu Wu was completely different. It became very respectful. The memory inheritance of his parents made him know how honorable Lu Wu, who cultivated the way of the human emperor, was. In ancient times, he was the leader of the entire human world. The descendants of ancestral leopard were just one of the many forces that followed the human emperor. Next, Lu Wu began to explain his plan to ancestral leopard. During the process, he used the artifact to input some information and introduction about the artifact into ancestral leopard's mind. All of this stunned ancestral leopard. However, when it heard that Lu Wu wanted to counterattack the heaven realm, ancestral leopard's eyes suddenly lit up. In the memory inheritance, its parents and clansmen were killed by the gods of the heaven realm. How could it forget such hatred? Originally, it thought that the glory of the human world had long ended. Under the strict blockade of the heaven realm, the human world had no chance of making a comeback, and revenge was even more hopeless. However, Lu Wu's appearance changed its perception. It also let it know that the opportunity to counterattack the heaven realm had come. The fighting spirit in its heart was instantly ignited. Ancestral Leopard's eyes became bright and lively. Then, Lu Wu explained the problems related to the non-submission and the matter of letting Ancestral Leopard become the totem of the non-submission. Ancestral Leopard was stunned when it knew that it was going to the Xianfeng region, which meant becoming the totem of the non-submission. However, it did not have any objection to this decision, especially when it knew that it was the totem of Chara. Because it was the totem of Chara, it was its god. After that, Ancestral Leopard accepted Bei Li's soul imprint. However, it did not resist at all. There was no conflict in its heart. Instead, a high fighting spirit was ignited in its originally lonely heart. After everything was settled, Ancestral Leopard officially became one of Lu Wu's people. However, Lu Wu also thought of a problem. That was the growth of Ancestral Leopard. The growth mode of the totem was to grow together with the players and complement each other. Currently, the 8 totems of the non-submission had their own corresponding groups of players. However, Ancestral Leopard was obviously not one of the 8 totems. If it only depended on Chara, the growth speed was undoubtedly too slow. Thinking of this, Lu Wu habitually looked at Bei Li. It's time to live off a woman. Seeing Lu Wu's gaze, Bei Li knew what Lu Wu was thinking. She nodded. There are 2 ways. The server has just opened, so we can add another totem directly. Anyway, there are still a lot of players who are struggling with the choice of totem. The second way is to let Ancestral Leopard become a totem and an NPC at the same time. Let it trade with the players and earn soul coins. While relying on Chara's feedback to grow, it can also use its soul power to cultivate. Hearing this, Lu Wu nodded and looked at Ancestral Leopard. Stupid leopard, which one do you want? Ancestral Leopard fell into deep thought. After a while, Ancestral Leopard raised its head. Which one has the greater growth potential? Both are very great. The growth of the totem can be said to be complementary growth. The potential of the players in the future is unlimited. Becoming a totem can also cultivate to become a god or even a higher life form. If it's the growth of soul power, the process is more difficult. You need to operate it to earn soul coins. However, your mind has the ancestral knowledge, so it is not a big problem for you. The biggest advantage of this choice is freedom. Hearing what Bei Li said, Ancestral Leopard originally wanted to choose to become a totem. However, when he heard the word freedom, he could not help but be stunned. Because in reality it had lost its freedom for too long. It had been sealed under the Holy Man tribe. Ancestral Leopard even thought that it had no hope of getting out in this lifetime. At this moment, when it suddenly heard the word freedom, it could not help but feel touched. Thinking of this, it nodded hard. I choose freedom. Very well, you will be the first NPC in the non-server. Oh yes, I will send you the techniques of earning soul coins from other NPCs. You can take a look. Lu Wu nodded immediately. I will lead the non-server players to grow and become your most loyal guard. Ancestral Leopard lowered its head to Lu Wu with a solemn expression. Lu Wu nodded indifferently. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the burden on his shoulders had become heavier. However, the fighting spirit in his heart was slowly ignited. All right, now it's time to send you to the non-server. Lu Wu looked at Ancestral Leopard and said, My lord, I am ready. Hearing this, Lu Wu waved his hand and drew a space tunnel. Ancestral Leopard saw this and took the initiative to jump into it. It chose to trust and be loyal to Lu Wu, who cultivated the Emperor path unconditionally. Meeting Lu Wu this time, its heart was burning with the flame of revenge against the heavenly realm. In the space created by the totem, after imagining the form of Ancestral Leopard, Chara was dumbfounded. Because not far in front of it, there was a creature that looked exactly like ancestral leopard. This was too real, wasn't it? Was technology already so advanced now? However, what troubled Chara was what to do next after creating the form. This was because there was no Next Step button on the function panel. At this moment, ancestral leopard, who was originally in a daze, suddenly shook its body, and its originally empty eyes were filled with life. Chara, who saw this scene, suddenly opened its eyes wide. This is too real. Its eyes are exactly the same as ancestral leopards. Thinking of this, Chara approached ancestral leopard with a conflicted expression on its face. It seemed like it wanted to touch ancestral leopard, but it was a little afraid. Try and touch it. At this moment, ancestral leopard suddenly glared at it, and Chara was so scared that it took a few steps back. It's alive. Hearing this, ancestral leopard almost couldn't help but slap the kid to death. What do you mean by alive? You have no respect for your elders. Chapter 525. Looking at the shocked Chara, ancestral leopard was speechless. Chara, don't you recognize me? Chara was even more shocked when he heard ancestral leopard speak, and his expression instantly became extremely terrified. Roar! Ancestral leopard couldn't help but let out a roar at Chara. At this moment, Chara was sure that the ancestral leopard in front of him was not the ancestral leopard model that he had imagined, but the real ancestral leopard that the holy man tribe worshipped. Ancestral God! Chara immediately knelt on one knee, placed his right hand on his left chest, and lowered his head to salute ancestral leopard. Get up! Ancestral leopard nodded calmly. Ancestral leopard, why are you in the virtual world? Chara stood up in confusion and couldn't help but ask. This is not a virtual world but a real world. Ancestral leopard didn't hide anything from his believer, Chara. At this moment, Chara was confused again. He obviously couldn't understand what was going on. Ancestral leopard trusted his believer, Chara. It could be said that he had watched Chara grow up. Moreover, after Chara's soul was branded by the artifact, there was no possibility of him betraying ancestral leopard. Therefore, ancestral leopard didn't hide too much and told him some of the information he knew. Of course, ancestral leopard naturally chose to hide the existence of Lu Wu and Bailey. This was not something that Chara could come into contact with. Although he knew that there was no possibility of Chara betraying, ancestral leopard still warned Chara to never reveal what he knew to any other players, including the Holy Man tribe. What ancestral leopard said almost made Chara think that he was dreaming. After a moment of silence, he recovered from his shock. Chara had never doubted the existence of gods and ghosts because ancestral leopard was like a ghost. However, the game world was the real world, which was even more unbelievable than the existence of ghosts and gods in the real world. However, Chara naturally wouldn't doubt anything that ancestral leopard said. After coming back to his senses, Chara immediately looked up at ancestral leopard and said respectfully, "Ancestral God, what should I do?" Chara, you are the most talented ancestral leopard warrior I have ever seen in the Holy Man tribe. Do you know why you are in so much pain? It's because you've grown too fast, and you're more talented than the previous ancestral leopard warriors. However, this has also become your fatal weakness, because the sharpening of your spiritual level can't keep up with the progress of your beast body's cultivation. You're often tortured by the beast nature that has nowhere to vent. Hearing this, Chara's expression darkened. Ancestral leopard had also mentioned this to him at that time, but Chara still did not stop practicing the beast technique. Because he was the guardian of the Holy Man tribe, he had to constantly become stronger to guard against any possible crisis. 400 years ago, the Sacred Man clan had faced a huge crisis from the outside world. The danger did not come from the wild beasts on the prairie, but from modern humans. That crisis caused the Holy Man tribe to pay a heavy price. That generation of ancestral leopard warriors even fell because of it. Although they managed to drive away the gun-toting outsiders, It also made the future generations of ancestral leopard warriors understand that they must never stop growing stronger. Therefore, no matter how painful it was, as long as she was alive, Chara would grit her teeth and persevere. As an ancestral leopard warrior, this was his commitment to the safety of his clansmen. Looking at the silent Chara, Ancestral Leopard understood Chara's feelings very well. You are a natural-born warrior. This is also the reason why I chose you as an ancestral leopard warrior the moment you were born. It's just that I didn't expect your talent to be so high. You can still cultivate so quickly in this age of chaos, causing you to suffer so much pain. But now you can rest assured. Go to the game world to kill and grow. You are a beast, and the cruel laws of survival there is where you should stay. Go there to fight and grow. Ancestral God, I understand. Hearing Ancestral Leopard say that he could relieve his pain in the game, Chara nodded solemnly, his desire to fight igniting in his heart. Don't you want to know why I need you to grow quickly? Ancestral Leopard could not help but ask. I will do whatever you say, Ancestral God. You are my faith, and I will carry out any decision you make with my life. Chara answered without hesitation. Such an honest answer stunned Ancestral Leopard. What an honest believer! As expected of a child I raised since childhood, I did not raise him for nothing. At this moment Ancestral Leopard could not help but nod. Since you already understand, then enter the game. Go fight, go kill, and completely vent the beastly nature in your heart. As Ancestral Leopard's voice fell, a game notification sounded, and it was a server announcement. Server announcement. Congratulations to player Chara for creating a new totem faith Ancestral Leopard Totem, exclusive totem. Totem information. Player Chara created a faith god based on the totem of her tribe's faith. Totem characteristics. 8 types: wild, battle, agility, divine beast body, shape-shifting, humanoid, beast, self-healing, life enhancement, blood burst, berserk, rage, totem growth. The strongest close combat totem at the current stage. Possesses swift movement and the ability to kill in an instant. Extremely high explosive limit. After the server announcement, the entire non-server fell into a short period of silence. Following that, the various forums were instantly flooded with countless posts. Creating a new profession at the start of the server, and even breaking Night God Mist's record, this completely drove the players of the various servers crazy. In the server announcement, the introduction of Ancestral Leopard's totem was even more unbelievable to the non-server players. 8 totem characteristics. It was even more than the sky-swallowing lion of the magic type. What was even more terrifying was that the growth introduction directly pointed out that this was the strongest close combat profession at the current stage. Countless players who had chosen other close combat totems were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. Moreover, this was actually an exclusive totem in the introduction, which meant that this totem only belonged to the player who created this profession. Such treatment made the players' eyes red. Imana, non-server, warmly celebrating the birth of our first cheat in the non-server, everyone stand up to pay their respects. Power of God, non-server, why is it an exclusive totem? I've been happy for nothing since I haven't chosen a totem. Please share, I also want to play the strongest close combat profession. Crying emoji. Lion King Simba, non-server, congratulations, but I still like the current sky-swallowing lion, and I don't regret my choice. Happy emoji. Crayon_Shinchan. The strongest server has sent me as a representative to greet you. Also, this player named Chara has good potential, but compared to our original cheat group, I reckon there's still a big gap. It can't be helped after all, the original server is the daddy's server, laughing emoji. Star_universe. Europe. The people of the European server have sent a congratulatory message. Also, I'll angrily hammer the bar spirit upstairs. Hellboy, Europe. The people of the Infernal server have sent a congratulatory message. Also, I'll say this, the Infernal server is the strongest, and I'll also smash the head of the bar spirit upstairs. Laughing emoji. Boros_hierarch, Asia, the people of the Asian server have sent a congratulatory message. Also, I'll take over the hammer upstairs and smash the bar spirit upstairs. Light of the Grassland, non-server, I'd like to ask Brother Chara how to create a totem belief? Can you post a specific strategy? Thank you. While the forum was in a heated discussion, Chara had entered the game at this moment. His figure passed through the clouds, an endless primeval forest appeared in the west of his sight, and in the east was an area where deserts and grasslands coexisted, and further east was the blue sea. This was the land of Xianfeng. At this moment, the introduction of this land appeared in front of Chara's eyes. Land of Xianfeng, land introduction. In the underworld, this is the only land with a forest coverage of more than 70%. There is an abundance of species in this land, but danger lurks everywhere. There are many exotic beasts with strange abilities in the forest, as well as many deadly plants. It is a paradise for nurturing new life, but it is also a forbidden land for life. Land forces distribution. Chunyo tribe, only force 12 subordinate tribes, player background. As a descendant of the weak tribe, extreme tribe, grow quickly in this land where danger lurks everywhere. Player main storyline. Make the extreme tribe you are in become the overlord of this land of Xianfeng. After reading it, the introduction words in front of Chara slowly faded, and his vision became blurry. When his vision became clear again, Chara found himself standing on the peak of a mountain, with clouds and mist lingering in front of him. This was the safe zone that Lu Wei had set up for the non-server players. Boundless Peak. In the land of Xianfeng where danger lurks everywhere, this mountain peak, which was 2,678 meters above sea level, could protect the growth of the players in the early stages. It was the best place to start the player's birth. The only drawback was that it would take a lot of time for the players to descend the mountain. However, this problem was actually very easy to solve. Not to mention that there were many wild beasts in the Boundless Peak that could help the players grow in the early stages. In the future, as long as the players continued to develop and clear all the wild beasts in the mountain peak and occupied this area, Lu Wu would naturally set up a teleportation point to the bottom. By then, it would be very convenient for the non-server players to go up and down the mountain. At this moment, the area where Chara was at was densely packed with players. Although there were constantly players leaving the area to explore, there were also a large number of players entering the game, so the area was very congested at this moment. From time to time, there were exclamations and praises from the new players who had just entered the area. Regarding the realism of this game, even though many of the non-server players had watched the relevant game videos beforehand, they were still shocked after experiencing it for real. In contrast, Chara was very calm. After all, he knew many secrets that the players did not know, and he knew that this world was completely real. At this moment, Chara squeezed through the crowd and walked towards the foggy area on the map, ready to start his own exploration and growth. Just like what the ancestral leopard had said, after cultivating the ancestral leopard's beast skills, he was not only a human, but also a wild beast. The bestial nature in his body drove him to seek out battles and kill to his heart's content. Although this world was full of danger, it was also the best place for him to train. As he moved forward, Chara was speechless when he saw that the mountains and plains were filled with the figures of players. Whenever a wild beast was found, a large wave of players would swarm over, just like locusts passing through the territory. The leveling craze after the opening of the server was incomparably crazy. Chara had no choice but to move forward, looking for a suitable leveling ground for himself. While moving forward, Chara also began to study the function panel to familiarize himself with the game's content. The character panel, the shop panel, the profession panel, and so on. When Chara opened the function panel, a countdown timer for the opening of the server and a special event announcement in golden font appeared in front of him. Opening of the server leveling event countdown. 7 days, 21 hours, 57 minutes. Special event. Individual battle ranking match, warm-up match. Chapter 526. What attracted Chara's attention was not the first activity, but the second activity marked in gold. Special event. Individual competition, warm-up. Event introduction. With the opening of the non-server server, the Battle for Individual Ranking Tournament has officially started its warm-up. In the early stages of the Individual Ranking Tournament, players can register to participate through the event panel. Individual competition ranking competition. In the early stages, players can only compete against other players of the same server. After winning, players will be rewarded with competition points and competition points. Competition points can be exchanged for soul coins, experience potions, and exclusive titles. Tournament points. The higher the tournament points, the stronger the opponent you will be matched with. Individual tournament points correspond to 6 ranks: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, king. The number of people in the king rank is fixed, and it is obtained by the 10,000 players with the highest rank on the server. Players must have at least 10,000 tournament points to enter. Warm-up reward. The player who successfully becomes the king of the warm-up competition will receive the qualification to spar in the server's individual tournament, limited to 3 days, as well as the qualification to participate in the official server's individual tournament. Who is the strongest cheat in battle? Prove it with your strength. Chara was stunned when he saw the activity of the individual tournament. After reading the introduction of the event, Chara's eyes suddenly burned with battle intent. The bestial nature in his body stirred once again, the desire to fight surging in his body. In reality, in order not to harm his clansmen, he had been suppressing his bestial nature and did not even dare to fight recklessly. But here, he didn't need to suppress it. Especially the individual ranking tournament, where he could fight against strong opponents, he couldn't help but be filled with fighting spirit. Thinking of this, he decisively pressed the sign up button. Immediately, a notification of successful registration popped up on the event interface. At the same time, the registration interface also changed. Chara, Ancestral Leopard Totem. Wins. 0 failures. 0 winning percentage. 0% competition points. 0 no rank competition points. 0 under his competition information. There were 2 more options. Match begins. Competition point mall. Although it was only level 0 at the moment, the fighting spirit in Chara's heart had already been ignited. Without hesitation, she clicked Start Matching. A game notification appeared. Game notification. Starting matchmaking. Game notification. Matchmaking successful. Entering individual arena. In less than a second, the match was successful. Chara immediately discovered that the space around him had begun to distort. When it became clear again, he discovered that he had appeared in a huge, dilapidated, circular arena. Random arena. Lost arena. The marble floor was filled with cracks, and moss had even grown out of the cracks. It was a scene of ruin. While Chara was still in shock, a figure slowly appeared not far away from him. Game notification. Your opponent is Amora. Spectators. 0 Amora. Competition information. Level 21 wins. 3 losses. 0 no rank. Game notification. Please get ready. The battle will begin in 10 seconds. At this time, a huge light screen appeared in front of Chara, isolating him from the player called Amora. In the center of the light screen, a countdown was jumping. Realizing that the battle was about to begin, Chara immediately became excited. Here, he didn't need to suppress his instincts at all. He could release his bestial nature to his heart's content. Roar! Chara slowly lowered his body, all 4 limbs on the ground. His pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle, and he entered a battle state. Not far away, Amora, who had won 3 battles in a row, found out that his opponent was a level 0 newbie with no battle records. He almost laughed until his snot bubbles came out. 2 days ago, he had bought a gaming cabin and leveled up crazily for 24 hours in order to suppress his opponent in the individual competition. He wanted to get a good result in the early stages of the competition. Just 2 hours ago, he had reached level 21. After feeling that he was already ahead of most players, Amora decisively started his individual competition, preparing to rush for the rank. Just as he had expected, with the suppression of his attributes brought by his level, he easily achieved 3 consecutive victories, and his individual competition points reached 79 points. As his points increased, the chances of being matched with a strong opponent would also increase. Just now, Amora was still worried that he would be matched with an opponent he couldn't defeat because of his bad luck, and that would break his winning streak. But when the competition started, he couldn't help but laugh when he saw Chara's battle records and level. It was obvious that he had picked up a free victory this time. The nervousness in his heart faded, and Amora was now much calmer. It was time to bully noobs. As the light screen in the middle dissipated, his opponent's hazy figure became clear, and the battle began at this moment. But Amora was stunned. What was this guy doing lying on the ground? Was he surrendering? While Amora was puzzled by this, Chara suddenly bounced up from the ground, and his body shot out like a cheetah, sprinting towards Amora. Seeing this, Amora was shocked, because Chara's speed was too fast. Although it was only level 0 and didn't have any attribute buffs, Chara's speed was extremely fast by relying on the movement of its 4 limbs, as well as the buff of its own ancestral cheetah's agility characteristic, and it instantly closed in on Amora. The frightened Amora hurriedly released one of the elephant god totem's skills, Mountain Quake. His right foot suddenly stomped downwards. Roar! Chara, who had keenly sensed Amora's intention, increased its speed once again, and then leaped up, its sharp claws suddenly slashing towards Chara's neck. This attack was extremely smooth, and the moment it leaped up, its sharp claws had already reached Amora's neck. Crack! The sharp claws slapped on Amora's neck, and the red damage word appeared. Because it was a weak point attack, this attack took away 18 points of Amora's HP. Amora was completely shocked to be able to deal such damage at level 0. He couldn't care less about using his skills, and decisively swung his right arm and punched towards Chara, who was floating in the air. At this moment, Chara's body flipped strangely in the air, and while dodging his attack, it once again slapped its claws on his neck. 2 weak point attacks had taken away 1/4 of Amora's HP. This undoubtedly made Amora angry, and the feeling of being crushed by skills really made him feel bad. He immediately swung his fist again. At this moment, Chara grabbed his right arm, and with a forceful pull, its body collided with him. Their eyes met, and Amora saw Chara's sharp and bloodthirsty eyes. Those eyes were filled with murderous intent and aggression, and he couldn't help but feel afraid. But at this moment, Chara's body came into contact with his, and Amora knew that his chance had come. He hurriedly crossed his arms in front of his chest, wanting to hug Chara, because as long as he successfully restrained Chara, he had ways to kill it. After all, he had a huge advantage in terms of attribute. But at this moment, Chara's actions made him dumbfounded. Chara, who came into contact with his body, shook its head violently, and bit down on his throat. Chara's ancestral leopard's talent skill was activated, and its teeth turned black. With a low growl, it bit down hard again. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was heard, and crimson blood words appeared. This time, Amora's HP was directly emptied. With Amora's death, a game notification appeared. Competition notification. Battle victory, obtained 3 competition points, 21 competition points, battle record, 1-0, no ranks, roar. As Amora's body slowly turned into black fog and disappeared, Chara, who was standing in the middle of the arena, let out an angry roar. An opponent like Amora was too weak in his eyes, and he couldn't let him feel satisfied at all. Thinking of this, Chara clicked on his competition menu, and started his second battle. This battle really made Amora dumbfounded. He actually bit? How could a battle be played like this? As a modern person, Chara's wild fighting style really scared him. Chara. Chara. Thinking of this name, Amora suddenly thought of a person, the mysterious player who created the new totem. His name seemed to be Chara. F*ck, it's a wall hanger. After thinking that Chara might be that wall hanger, Amora's heart instantly calmed down. He quickly opened the competition menu, extracted the video of the battle just now, and then opened the forum, and posted this video, planning to ride on Chara's popularity in the early stages. After all, there were still many benefits to being famous in the forum. Having popularity was one thing, sometimes there might even be a reward. Of course, there were not many players in the non-server who had soul coins. At this moment, the non-server forum was still discussing who this player called Chara was. At this moment, Amora's post appeared. Found Chara, he's in the arena, and was matched with me just now. In the end, I lost because he bit OP. The strong Amora content. Attached video. The appearance of this post instantly attracted the attention of a large number of non-server players, as well as players from other servers who mingled in the non-server. Surely _the strongest. Is this kid so murderous? He's biting someone. Won't the referee come out and do something about it? Laughing emoji. Crayon _Shinchan replied to surely _the strongest. There are no rules to the battle. As long as you can win, no one will say that you're childish even if you spit in battle. Laughing emoji. Light of the prairie. Not why do I feel that Chara is like a beast, and he roars from time to time during the battle? But he's really cool, too valiant, like emoji. Imana, not ahem, is there any professional player who can go to the arena to snipe our first wall hanger? He's starting a competition at level 0, I think he's a little too arrogant. Laughing emoji. Light of the gods. Snipe, we can't let the wall grow in arrogance, we have to make him suffer some setbacks. All high-level players, quickly match with each other. I'll enter the arena to watch the battle first. I'll report to you guys at any time. Seeing Chara start a competitive ranking competition at level 0 so arrogantly, many non-server players suddenly became restless. There were even a few players who launched a snipe operation, preparing to make their first wall hanger suffer some setbacks in the name of training. Soon, the number of spectators in the arena gradually increased. These players had all searched for the name Chara and followed him to watch every single one of his battles. Every time Chara ended a battle, the players who were ready to snipe would follow the instructions of the spectators and decisively click the Start Matching button at the same time as Chara. However, as the battles quickly ended, many spectators were dumbfounded. That was because Chara was so strong that it was a little unbelievable to them. He truly displayed the unruliness to the fullest, and his fierce fighting style was simply like a bloodthirsty beast. Chara's attributes were obviously the weakest, but any player who fought against him would feel a huge sense of oppression. In the battle, they were the passive side, and Chara was often the one attacking. Swift and violent dodging, bloodthirsty and fatal attacks, and high explosive damage. In just a short period of half a day, Chara achieved 18 consecutive victories, and all the players who were matched with snipers were all defeated without exception. The entire non-server forum was instantly in an uproar, and more players began to enter the arena's spectator stand, wanting to learn battle techniques or witness the moment Chara was defeated. Another half a day later, when Chara's winning streak reached 26 consecutive victories, not only did the non-server forum, but many players from other servers also knew about this news. There was a player in the non-server called Chara, whose fighting style was incomparably valiant, achieving a 26 consecutive victory in competitive matches at level 0. However, just as the players were excited to continue watching how long Chara's winning streak would last, Chara suddenly disappeared. Due to the virtual reality helmet's 12-hour game limit, he was kicked out of the game. At this moment, Chara, who had not had his fill of killing, was also dumbfounded. Chapter 527. Having reached the game limit of 12 hours, Chara was forced to quit the game just as he was about to continue fighting. At that moment, Chara was a little confused. Clearly, he did not understand why a game had a game limit of 12 hours. He subconsciously took off his helmet and immediately found Jack dozing off not far away. The sky outside the window was filled with stars. It was already nighttime. After 26 consecutive battles in the game, each opponent was stronger than the previous one. Even after quitting the game, Chara still felt his blood boiling. The realistic scene and the feeling of the battles made Chara very addicted. In reality, he had to suppress the beastly nature in his body. However, in the battle arena, he could freely vent the anger in his heart. The continuous battles could only be described with one word, and that was awesome. If it was not for the game limit of 12 hours, Chara felt that he could continue fighting and kill to his heart's content. Looking at Jack, who was dozing off not far away, Chara thought for a moment, stood up and walked to his side. He reached out his hand and patted his shoulder. "Jack, wake up!" Jack was startled awake from his dreams and hurriedly opened his eyes. When he saw Chara standing in front of him, he rubbed his sleepy eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Chara." "Chara? Did you quit the game?" Hearing this, Chara was slightly helpless. "I was forced to quit the game. They said that I've reached the game limit." "Haha, is it painful?" Jack was instantly energized when he heard Chara's experience. This was because he had experienced the feeling of being forced to quit the game when he was having fun. It was really exasperating and frustrating. "Is there any way to extend the game time?" Chara could not help but frown and ask. Originally, he was only planning to give the game a try because he could not persuade Jack. However, after meeting Zhu Bao in the game and experiencing the game content, he had decided to play the game to his heart's content. Therefore, game time was very important to him. Thinking about this, Jack immediately explained, "This is also the battle arena's protection for the players. Although you're very strong, you still have to buy a virtual gaming pod if you want to play the game for 24 hours. Otherwise, you can only play the game for 12 hours a day and will be forced to go offline when you reach the limit." "Gaming pod? Where can I buy it?" Chara immediately asked. "No way, you're addicted?" Jack was stunned. In his opinion, Chara had always been an indifferent person, as if she had no desire for anything. Her only insistence was to protect the Holy Man tribe. Therefore, this sudden change had caught him off guard. "This game can release the beast in me. I need it." In the face of Jack's question, Chara did not say anything about the ancestral leopard, but only answered as such. "Haha, I guessed it right. Completely real world. I knew it could be done." Hearing this, Jack could not help but laugh. He only wanted Chara to experience the game with the mentality of giving it a try. Considering that Battle Royale was a 100% realistic game, he felt that it might work. Now that he had gotten a positive answer from Chara, Jack could not help but feel happy. However, when he thought of Chara wanting to buy a gaming cabin, Jack could not help but fall into deep thought. Chara was not anxious either as she waited for Jack's reply. After a while, Jack raised his head and said, "If you want to buy a gaming cabin, you have to face two problems. First is the problem of funds, because the price of a gaming cabin is not low. Moreover, shipping it here is also a big expense. Coupled with the replacement of the nutrient solution from time to time, the price is not low. Moreover, you need to specially buy a solar charger. After all, there is no device to supply the gaming cabin to charge." Hearing this, Chara suddenly felt pressured. Because he had no money at all. Although the Holy Man tribe had contact with the outside world, and the tribe also had a sum of funds that could be used to exchange goods with the outside world, the money was the tribe's, not his. Moreover, this sum of money in the tribe was not much, but it was very important to the Holy Man tribe. Naturally, he could not use it at will. gaming cabin, nutrient solution, transportation, solar charger. The pressure from the financial aspect was really a headache for Chara. However, after trying it out, he knew how important this game was to him. Even the ancestral leopard supported his growth in the game. Naturally, he would not give up just like that. At this moment, Chara thought of hunting, exchanging the game with the outside world, and then saving the money to buy a gaming cabin. However, after thinking about it carefully, this idea was not realistic because there were no cities nearby. Unless he left the tribe and went to the outside world to find a way to earn money, he could not think of any other way to earn money. As if seeing Chara's dilemma, Jack suddenly laughed. Chara, I will still be here for a long time. During this time, let's share the virtual reality helmet. You will have 12 hours, and I will have 12 hours. You can earn soul coins in the game, and it can help you buy a gaming cabin. Jack, what do you mean? Chara asked quickly. Faced with Chara's question, Jack smiled and began to explain the value of soul coins. Jack naturally knew how precious soul coins were. Before the start of the server, he was a cloud conquest player, and had learned a lot of war-related information and videos. Therefore, he clearly knew that there was simply nothing that could not be bought with soul coins in the current war, including in real life. Cars, houses, and the like were not counted. There were even players who used soul coins as betrothal gift. For the players, there was never enough soul coins, which also led to the price of soul coins never falling, and even rising steadily. Therefore, as long as there were soul coins, it was naturally not a problem to buy items such as gaming cabins. As long as the ratio was right, there were players who were willing to fork out cash to exchange for soul coins. Now that the server had also started, just as a player had predicted a long time ago, soul coins had become the virtual currency. There was even no need to exchange for cash. In the game, a large number of players were willing to directly exchange things in real life for soul coins. Therefore, the problem of Chara wanting to buy items such as gaming cabins was no longer a problem as long as there were soul coins. It could even be said that as long as there were enough soul coins, Chara could even mobilize the forces of the outside world and transform the Holy Man tribe into a modern small city. Of course, all of this was under the premise that there were enough soul coins. After listening to Jack's explanation, Chara came to a realization. At this moment, he finally understood how popular the game was in the outside world. And the server that he was in had only just started, and was still in its infancy. After that, when Chara heard Jack ramble on about how powerful the other old server's hack players were, the fighting spirit in Chara's eyes surged again. At this moment, Chara was full of yearning for this game. Strong opponents, cruel rules of survival. Just as Ancestral Leopard had said, that world was suitable for a beast like him. Now you understand. As long as you have soul coins, you can obtain many things from the outside world in the game. During this period, you will use the virtual helmet during the day and find ways to earn soul coins. I will continue to shoot my documentary, but when your gaming time limit is reached at night, I will use the virtual helmet. What do you think? Chara immediately nodded. Jack, thank you very much for your help. You're welcome. I still have to thank you for your cooperation during this period. Who knows, this documentary might make me famous. Jack could not help but smile. In fact, it was not that he did not want to help Chara buy a gaming cabin, but he really did not have that much money. After all, he had to take care of his family. Otherwise, he would not have taken such a big risk to come to the prairie to shoot a documentary on animal migration. Even though he had previously sponsored the Holy Man tribe with a sum of money, it was only 10,000 in cash, which was a part of his monthly salary. Perhaps to the Holy Man tribe, this amount of money was a lot, but it was still far from enough to buy a gaming cabin, not to mention subsequent items such as nutrient fluids. For the Holy Man tribe, this amount of money might be very important, because they did not have much cash reserves from the outside world. This money could help the tribe in times of difficulty. However, in the modern era, The purchasing power of 10,000 in cash was very weak. Therefore, Jack came up with this idea to let Chara carry bricks in the game to earn money. He believed that with Chara's ability, he would definitely be able to earn this amount of money very quickly. After all, Chara was different from modern people. He was a real warrior, and he would definitely be able to make a name for himself in the game. At this moment, Jack did not know that Chara had already become famous in the entire non-server server. He was even recognized by the non-server players as the first wall-hacking player in their server. In particular, the fact that he had created a new class on the third day of the server's launch made Chara's name very famous in the forums of other servers. At this moment, there were even players on the forums who edited a compilation of Chara's 26 individual competitions, making Chara's popularity in the non-server reach its peak. If they could pull Chara into their guild, not to mention gaming cabins, there would even be tycoons who would be willing to give every member of the Holy Man tribe a gaming cabin. After all, the value of a wall-hacking player could be seen from the other servers. A few days later, Chara began to take turns using the virtual reality helmet with Jack. During this period, Chara felt refreshed every day. He no longer felt pain, and the hostility in his body had completely faded. This was because in the game, he could kill wantonly without having to worry about anything. His level had also reached level 23. His strong bestial intuition and hunting ability in the wild made leveling up in the early stages very easy for him. In terms of individual competitions, Chara would be matched with about 5 matches every day. The opponents were also getting stronger. Some of the opponents might not be as high as the previous players, but in terms of technique, they really surprised Chara. There were many non-server players, and it could be said that there was no shortage of technical players, which made Chara more and more excited as he fought. Until now, his battle record had reached 58 consecutive wins, 0 losses, and a 100% win rate. All of this proved Chara's strong individual strength. Apart from creating a new class, every battle of Chara would be made into a video and uploaded to the forum for other players to learn from. However, it must be said that Chara's battle skills were not something that could be learned by ordinary people. Not to mention the battle posture of lying on all fours, those ferocious beast-like battle methods, such as biting and tearing, were even more difficult to learn. During this period, Chara had completely become a god in the non-server. As the battle record continued to increase, Chara even attracted the attention of other wall-hacking players, especially the battle-hungry Aogn and the others, who had already regarded him as a potential opponent. Although Chara might be much weaker in terms of level, as the game progressed, their level would increase slower. Moreover, the game was full of opportunities. As long as one's individual strength was strong, the gap brought about by level would only become smaller and smaller. The biggest gap still came from individual skills. Moreover, there was a rule in the individual competition. That was, after entering the Diamond Division, the strength of all matched opponents would be balanced. This naturally included the open competitions of the 4 major servers. Starting from the Diamond Division, even if one's own level was 100 levels higher than the opponent's, and the attributes of the equipment were also overwhelming, from this division onwards, one would have to pay more attention to skills. As soon as the competition started, the attributes of the players on both sides would be adjusted. Of course, it was only a slight balance, not a complete balance. After all, some classes needed strong attributes to be able to deal high damage. This was because these classes were originally weak in the early stages, and only rose after their attributes increased in the later stages. A complete balance would be very unfair to the players of these classes. In terms of balance, Bailey made a summary of various aspects such as classes, equipment, levels, and skills, and then set a balance value. When different classes met, there would be a complete balance of attribute. Of course, the attributes of the competition were only slightly adjusted by about 40%, and not completely balanced. There was no absolute fairness in this world. Absolute fairness would always be unfair. Those players who worked hard for 24 hours a day to exchange for good equipment, why couldn't they have a slight advantage? Those players who used their accumulated wealth in real life to exchange for good equipment also had to pay their own price. For Lu Wu, balance was naturally relative, not absolute. Of course, the existence of a slight balance was also necessary. This was because Lu Wu valued skills more, and a slight balance would also allow the players to work hard to learn combat skills, instead of blindly carrying bricks in pursuit of good equipment and attribute. If blindly stacking attributes meant being powerful, then the players would enter the wrong path of growth, and they would no longer focus on combat skills. This was something that Lu Wu had naturally thought of. For this reason, before the individual competition started, Lu Wu repeatedly modified the settings with Bei Li's help. After many tests, he was completely satisfied with the settings, and only then did he introduce the individual competition, warm-up. This individual competition was a grand occasion for all the players who had been training hard in combat skills, and it was also the time for the players who had been training hard to show off their skills. All the players were working hard to break through the ranks, and they wanted to obtain the highest honor in their own server. They also wanted to break out of their own server and fight against the professional players from other servers, for the glory of their own server. Chapter 528. Just as Ancestral Leopard had said, only with such a mentality could he sharpen his mind and constantly break through his limits to become stronger. Because the Blood Beast Man was actually faster than him. Thus, he made a decision to descend the mountain and search for other wild monsters in the forest. In reality, he was confined to the Holy Man tribe. Even if he left, he would only stay in the vicinity of the tribe. Along the way, there were players everywhere. Seeing this scene, the Blood Beastmen below went crazy. Chara hesitated for a moment, but still chose to refuse. But soon, Chara didn't think so. After understanding that it couldn't contend with the Blood Beastman in terms of power, Chara rushed forward while paying attention to the Blood Beastman's wooden stick to avoid being hit. However, his clumsy hands and feet caused him to slip after climbing a few meters. At this moment, he was a wild beast fighting for prey. There was no need for any explanation. The meat was tight and delicate, and when it entered the mouth, it released a fragrance and spiritual energy, causing Chara, who was eating, to shiver uncontrollably. This was because this spiritual beast did not belong to him at all. The danger came from the ground, from the sky, and even from the plants with strong camouflage abilities that could be seen everywhere. However, such a jungle environment also gradually made Chara excited. But in the game, he wanted complete freedom. Monster condition. Hungry, tired, slight, faced with Lai Zala's hostility, the Blood Beast Man didn't attack and instead raised his wooden stick and pointed at Zala. Seeing this, the Blood Beast Man roared and swept his wooden club towards Chara. The mountains and plains were filled with players who wanted to level up during the early stages of the server's launch. Chara saw many groups of players fighting each other to steal monsters. This cruelty didn't come from the outside world, but from within the players. It was caused by the scarcity of resources. At first, Chara was not clear about the situation. When she passed by a flowering shrub, she was almost ambushed by a plant. If this continued, he would be caught. Blood Beast Man, level 69 elite. At this moment, the monster also noticed Chara's arrival. Chara decisively jumped up once again, its limbs lightly tapping on the wooden stick as it pounced towards the Blood Beast Man. Fortunately, he had the powerful instinct of a beast. He sensed the killing intent in advance and avoided the danger. He also successfully destroyed the soul-sucking flower. Like locusts, the players continued to nibble away at the foot of the mountain. Chara's eyes became bloodthirsty. The purple claws flickered as they stabbed towards the Blood Beastman's eyes. It stared at Chara as if it wanted to remember it. After a while, it turned around and ran into the distance. Since the non-server had just been launched, the player's activity area was basically in the boundless mountain. Other than killing monsters to level up, there were no other ways to earn soul coins like in other servers such as fishing, chopping trees, and carrying brick. Most importantly, even if you found it, it might not be yours. Even though they were walking at an extremely fast speed, due to the rugged mountain path and their unfamiliarity with the terrain, it took Chara half a day to descend the mountain. Moreover, the first main quest of the non-server players was to become the overlord of the Black Wind region, and these tribal warriors were their enemies. At this time, Chara's figure flickered as she pounced towards the Blood Beast Man. Thorn's Forest, East. Moreover, with the Blood Beastman's power, as long as he was hit once, he would be instantly killed. At this time, Chara no longer had to worry about not being able to find wild monsters. Instead, she began to pay attention to the existence of groups of wild monsters, trying to avoid being surrounded. After all, to them, this was just a game, and it would not be a problem even if they broke the sky. This monster looked extremely boorish. It was dressed in animal skin, with 2 beast fangs exposed. Its whole body emitted a foul stench, and there were mosquitoes lingering on its body. In its left hand, it was carrying a creature with snow-white fur. In terms of movement speed, Chara was extremely confident. His figure shuttled through the forest, his sensitive senses and conditioned reflexes allowing him to react in advance to any terrain. Chara turned to look at the Blood Beast Man below, and a smile appeared in his eyes as he leaped up a few meters again. However, the expected stinging pain did not occur. Instead, its left hand suddenly felt lighter. When it opened its eyes, it found that Chara had actually escaped not far away with the snow spirit bug in his mouth. Seeing this, Chara did not stay any longer and continued to stride forward. After trying this several times, the Blood Beast Man finally gave up climbing and began to pound the giant tree frantically. Facing the Blood Beast Man, whose level was much higher than his, Chara did not retreat. Instead, he let out a low roar. Roar! Seeing that Chara was ignoring him, the Blood Beast Man fiercely stomped its foot and stretched its head towards Chara. Chara wrinkled its nose. From the stench coming from the Blood Beastman's body, Chara suddenly smelled a meaty fragrance, and that smell came from the snow spirit bug in the Blood Beastman's hand. Moreover, because it was biting the snow spirit bug, its speed was affected to a certain extent. Creature prompt: target is a spirit beast. Its meat is delicious and extremely valuable. After eating it, there is a high probability of obtaining a permanent attribute increase. In the forum, Chara's fame had already reached the point where everyone knew about him. How could this not make it angry and frightened? If it failed, it would not be far from death. Chara did not answer and continued to stare at the Blood Beast Man, looking for an opportunity to attack. The cruel law of survival had already been vividly displayed at the start of the game. It had been in this thorny forest for many years, but it was the first time it had seen a creature like Chara, so it was very surprised. Thus, after obtaining the snow spirit bug, Chara decisively chose to escape. Not only were there wild monsters, but there were also many plant-shaped lifeforms full of aggression, and there were even predators from the sky. Chara immediately concentrated and began to think of a way to avoid the Blood Beast Man. His fierce fighting style in the individual arena was called Beast Fighting Style by the non-server players, and there were countless guides on how to learn it. Thus, it was easy to imagine how difficult it was to find a wild monster at this stage. What kind of creature are you? In reality, he was a warrior of the tribe, a guardian. But in battle, he was a wild beast, unrestrained, and doing as he pleased was the key to growth. His powerful sense of smell and danger perception became his strongest weapon in the forest at this moment. Clearly, the Blood Beast Man did not expect this creature to take the initiative to attack him. He immediately raised his wooden stick and swung it at Chara. He did not have complete confidence in defeating the Blood Beast Man. In this period of time, he had also understood the problem of the higher the level of the monster in the game, the more HP they had. The blood beastman was terrified and immediately closed his eyes. The diameter of this giant tree was more than 30 meters, its branches were luxuriant, its crown like an umbrella, and its top could not be seen at a glance. Just as Chara had expected, once they left the boundless peak, they would encounter many more creatures. A large number of players were fighting to learn and imitate it. His bestial instincts told him that he wanted to eat this snow spirit worm. But as the players continued to sweep downwards, the number of wild monsters in the boundless peak decreased. Roar! Seeing that Chara had jumped up the tree, the blood beastman smashed his stick on the trunk again. Seeing this, Chara decisively leaped towards the giant tree and quickly climbed several meters high with the snow spirit worm in his mouth. Instead, it was a spirit beast reared by the tribe, and it did not have the right to eat it. This time, it had received orders from the captain to go to the animal pen to find the animal pen's manager and get one to bring back to the tribe to give to the priest. When it reached the foot of the mountain, the fog on the map dispersed, and the name of the area it was in appeared. As they continued to explore, Chara suddenly stopped moving forward when they passed by a stream area. But even though the players were fighting, they were still very happy playing the game. At this time, the blood beastman also arrived, and fiercely swung his stick at the trunk of this giant tree, almost hitting Chara. Chara, on the other hand, walked all the way down the mountain. Now, he just wanted to leave the starting ground and go to the outside world. He could not stay in this boundless peak any longer. As the blood beastman got closer and closer, just when Chara thought that this battle was inevitable and was preparing to fight, a giant tree appeared in his sight. Monster information: warrior from the bloodthirsty tribe, one of the 12 subordinate tribes of the Cheonyo tribe. Extremely strong, and also a soldier of the bloodthirsty tribe during wartime. What Chara, who was happily eating, did not know was that because of his action, the first wave of crisis for the non-server players had arrived. But even the most direct method of killing monsters to accumulate soul coins was not easy to do in the early stages of the non-server game. Finding monsters was an extremely troublesome problem. Roar! Boom! However, this giant tree was deeply rooted, and the stick did not even have the right to shake it. It only sent some wood shavings flying. There were players fighting with each other, guilds fighting with each other, and there were even players fighting with wild monsters. The scene was extremely chaotic. Snow Spirit Worm, Rank 1 Spirit Beast. After placing the snow spirit worm in his mouth on the branch, Chara's appetite increased as he smelled its fragrance. He started to eat it raw. He did not expect to be robbed by Chara along the way. Creature status: dead, spiritual energy depletion, ongoing. However, his attack could not move the giant tree at all, other than sending some wood shavings flying. He had to fight other players passing by before he could decide. His beastly instincts told him that the blood beastman could not be defeated. After making his decision, Chara did not search for traces of wild monsters in the boundless peak. Instead, he walked straight down the mountain. As he walked, the number of players decreased, but the number of wild monsters he encountered increased. His walking posture changed from walking with his feet to walking on all fours. At this time, Chara, who had already climbed more than 20 meters high, jumped onto a branch. He turned his head to look down and immediately realized that the blood beastman was still hammering the giant tree. His sharp gaze suddenly landed on a 3-meter-tall figure holding a pitch-black wooden stick not far away. However, Chara had also encountered some troubles recently. For a period of time after that, Chara would practice his bestial techniques at night. During the day, he would enter the battle game to train and grow. More importantly, he would carry bricks to save money and buy a gaming cabin. That was because the speed at which he earned soul coins was too slow. This was the first time he had eaten such delicious food. Creature information: low-level spirit beast that was bred. It hides underground all year round. It is good at digging holes. It has a cowardly personality. It will hide underground at the slightest movement from the outside world. It was fine in the early stages as there were more wild monsters in the boundless peak. However, Chara was more troubled. Killing wild monsters was like looking for a missing person. He ran all over the mountains and plains. He was completely unable to earn enough soul coins to buy a gaming cabin. After realizing that the Blood Beast Man did not know how to climb trees, Chara was very calm. Die. Realizing that his prey had been robbed, the Blood Beast Man was very angry. He chased after Chara. Chara's gaze then shifted to the white creature in the Blood Beastman's hand. The wild monsters in the boundless peak were not like the Ghost Mountain, which belonged to the farming spots where new soul-type life forms could be created at any time. Therefore, in just a short week, the wild monsters in the upper half of this peak were almost wiped out by the non-server players. The Blood Beast Man stared at Chara, his eyes almost spitting fire. He immediately put down the wooden stick and began to climb. Apart from that, Chara had also received many invitations from guilds, and all of them offered high rewards. The blow was heavy and powerful, but Chara was extremely fast. He had been staring at the wooden stick the whole time and predicted where it would land. He immediately turned and pounced to the side, dodging the blow. Chapter 529. Black Wind Region, east of the Thorn Forest. At this moment, Chara was crouching in the bushes and observing the situation outside through the gap. He seemed very vigilant. During this period of time, because he had robbed a snow spirit worm, he had been besieged by the Beast Addict tribe for revenge. In the following 2 days, he had been hiding everywhere and had been besieged several times. He had even almost died. However, during his escape, Chara had discovered an incredible place. It was the area he was currently in, the Beast Pen. This territory was surrounded by reinforced fences and was heavily guarded. Many Blood Beast Men were stationed there, and there was even an extremely powerful ghost commander. At that time, Chara had not understood what this place was, but during his investigation, he had discovered that several Blood Beast Men had taken snow spirit worms from the Beast Pen. At that moment, he had realized that this was an area for breeding spirit beasts. After tasting the snow spirit worm and obtaining the 10 points of permanent attribute enhancement, Chara had an unparalleled desire for these spirit beasts. So, Chara started to do the dirty work of intercepting them. Although he would definitely not be able to enter the well-guarded beast pen breeding area with his strength, this was not a problem for Chara. Whenever a lone beastman came to retrieve a snow spirit worm, Chara would quietly follow him on the way back, waiting for an opportunity to rob them. Relying on the agility attribute of the ancestral leopard totem, Chara repeatedly succeeded and snatched another 3 snow spirit worms. How could this not annoy the Beast Addict tribe? Although the snow spirit worm was a low-level spirit beast, it was extremely rare. Other than being eaten directly, it could also be used to refine medicine. Its flesh that was filled with spiritual energy was even better for inscribing sacrificial talisman arrays. The value of an adult snow spirit worm would increase exponentially. However, snow spirit worms were extremely difficult to breed. Not many could successfully reach adulthood, and they would die from time to time. However, the Beast Addict tribe would not waste these dead snow spirit worms. Every once in a while, they would send people to the beast pen to retrieve the carcasses of the dead snow spirit worms and bring them back to the tribe to be used by the priests. Thus, during this period of time, Chara's several interceptions had really angered the Beast Addict tribe. After that, the warriors who went to the beast pen to retrieve the carcasses of the snow spirit worms no longer acted alone. The Beast Addict tribe even dispatched a large number of tribal warriors to surround Chara, determined to kill him. After several encounters, Chara had narrowly escaped. This undoubtedly enraged the Beast Addict tribe, the overlord of the Thorn Forest. The entire Beast Addict tribe had taken action at this stage and began to issue a series of measures against Chara. In addition to besieging Chara, They also began to investigate which tribe the warrior, Chara, belonged to. On the 8th day of the non-server, there were only 2 days left before the end of the leveling event, and the players were entering the final sprint stage. This meant that the world spirit war god Spirit Wang. The boundless peak alone was no longer enough to satisfy the players' daily leveling need. Moreover, most of the monsters on the boundless peak had already been wiped out. Under such circumstances, Lu Wu decisively activated the non-server teleportation formation to the foot of the mountain. In turn, under Spirit Dragon Region Spirit Forest Region Spirit, under all, the players became military experts and began proposing and warriors who war, and country war, the war, and all. They king world they and. The players had turned into military experts, proposing various battle plans and expressing their opinions freely on the server's forum. There were even non-server players who wanted to learn from the European server and rope in a powerful local NPC to their side to help them in battle. He also wanted to learn from the successful cases of the original server and rely on a powerhouse like Yu Yao to obtain early development resources. In short, as the weakest server, the non-server players could be said to have come up with hundreds of roundabout battle strategies in order to bridge the gap. However, when the non-server players stepped into the Thorn Forest, they discovered that the truth was the complete opposite of what they had imagined. The attitude of the Beast tribe in the eastern Thorn Forest towards players could be said to be extremely harsh. Many of the players who took the initiative to talk to the Beast Addict tribe were killed without exception. The first time they met was a battle. It was completely different from what they had imagined. Sowing discord between them? Using a borrowed knife to kill? None of that worked at all. This was because the warriors of the Beast Addiction tribe didn't give the players any chance to communicate. During this period of time, the non-server players had been beaten to the point of losing their temper. Their locust-like arrogance in the boundless mountains had been completely shattered. At this moment, the non-server players had witnessed the strength of the local forces in the Xianfeng land. Now, regardless of whether they were fighting as a group or acting alone, the non-server players were being suppressed. They didn't even understand why the Beast Addiction tribe was so hostile towards them. Of course, the non-server players wouldn't give up just like that. They launched several waves of attacks in an attempt to fight back. However, without exception, all of them were beaten back. During this period of time, when the Beast Addiction tribe realized that the players came from the Boundless Peak, they gathered a large number of warriors and formed a tribal battle group to attack the Boundless Peak. The non-server players were stunned by the ferocity of the Beast Addiction tribe. The server had just opened. Did the local forces have to be so brutal? The entire Boundless Peak was 2,678 meters above sea level. The players were beaten from the foot of the mountain to the mountainside, and from the mountainside, they were hammered up a few hundred meters. The warriors of the Beast Addiction tribe only retreated when all the defending players were dead. The plot was completely wrong. According to the non-server players' plan, they should work hard to develop and then massacre the entire Xianfeng land. However, less than 10 days after the server opened, they were almost killed by the local forces in the Xianfeng land. They were ruthlessly massacred, and their entire team was wiped out. This wave of battle completely dumbfounded the non-server players. The players who were discussing tactics on the forum shut their mouth. It was obvious that the Beast Addiction tribe wouldn't accept negotiations. In the first battle against the local forces, the Beast Addiction tribe had very few casualties. On the other hand, the non-server players were wiped out. The difference in strength was too great, and so was the psychological impact. After coming to their senses, the indignant non-server players formed a large team and charged toward the foot of the mountain. This time, the non-server players weren't surprised. They were once again hammered back to the mountaintop. Many of the non-server players who had just entered the game and were still admiring the scenery of the mountaintop were also captured by the Beast Addiction tribe. Their heads were smashed by black wooden sticks, and they suffered an undeserved calamity. The non-server players who were indignant formed another team and went down the mountain again. However, there were no exceptions every time. The non-server players who had just started out and didn't have much combat experience were no match for the battle-hardened warriors of the Beast Addiction tribe. Every time, they fought and retreated. They were fiercely beaten back to the mountaintop and their heads were smashed. The non-server players weren't the only ones who were dumbfounded. The players from the other servers who understood the situation were also rolling on the floor with laughter. It had only been less than 10 days since the server was launched, and they were already surrounded by the local forces in the safe zone. Moreover, they couldn't even get out of the safe zone. Other than the Hell difficulty server, the development of the other servers was relatively smooth. For example, in the early stages of the game, the players mainly farmed monsters in areas like the Ghost Mountains. They would only fight against Cha-Na when they had some strength. The European server players also farmed monsters in the Hidden Dragon village to level up. Even when they were threatened by the Hidden Dragon Ghost General and were forced to move away, the European server came up with a countermeasure. They stabilized the Hidden Dragon village and seized the time to develop. In the end, when they realized that the players had no intention of moving away, the Hidden Dragon village shed all pretense of cordiality and started a war with the players. However, by then, the European server players were no longer as weak as they used to be. They had the power to resist. Although the Asia server was constantly fighting against each other, they had not provoked the other forces in the Devil's Spine region. They were still developing. It could be said that the development of these three servers was relatively smooth despite the different levels of difficulty. However, it was the first time for the players from the other servers to see the non-server players being killed by the local forces in the safe zone. They couldn't help but roll on the floor with laughter. Because of this, the major guilds in the non-server server were extremely annoyed. However, they couldn't beat the local forces and neither could they negotiate with them. They had no way to deal with them. Moreover, the Beast tribe had set up camp at the foot of the mountain. They couldn't get out at all. The most heartbreaking thing for the non-server players was that there weren't many monsters left in the Boundless Mountain. They had no place to continue to train and develop. The non-server players had a mental breakdown. This game was too F***king difficult. They couldn't beat the local forces and neither could they negotiate with them. They couldn't even get out. Now, the non-server players realized that they couldn't do anything other than stand on the peak of the mountain and admire the scenery. Of course, they could also look at the surging sea of clouds on the peak of the mountain, paint, recite poems, and lament about life. F***CKU. Rubbish game. They had a complete mental breakdown. The non-server players began to strongly protest against the unfair treatment from the Battle Alliance officials. They felt that it was too much. How could the Beast tribe, which was initially set up, be so unreasonable? It was completely different from the other servers. At the very least, they should be given a smooth development process. The non-server players had no choice but to protest on the forum and seek help from the Battle Alliance officials. Lu Wu didn't know whether to laugh or cry after understanding the situation. However, Lu Wu didn't intend to help the non-server players. He chose the Thorn Forest in the Xianfeng region as the starting point for the non-server players because the Beast tribe was the weakest tribe among the Qianyo tribe. Moreover, this was also a training for the non-server players. If they were to seek help from the officials whenever they encountered a crisis that they couldn't handle, it would inevitably affect the growth of the players. This was evident from the Naraka server. The Naraka players who were cursing and swearing at the beginning were now extremely calm in the face of death. They were even surprised that they didn't die once a day. Even friends who met each other in the game would greet each other like this. Hey, did you die today? How many times did you die? Compared to the hardships of the Naraka server, the non-server environment was child's play. Therefore, Lu Wu only made an announcement and ignored it. Battle Alliance non-server announcement content. There is a cause for all the situations encountered in the non-server. The opening mode of the non-server is not extremely difficult. Please find a way to break through the blockade yourself. The non-server players felt even more miserable when they saw this announcement. Even their last hope, the Battle Alliance officials, had given up on them. It seemed like they were completely finished. As expected, the server that wasn't their own sun was not doted on. However, it was impossible for them to quit the game and give up on the game. Many non-server players had been waiting for the opening of the Battle Alliance server in agony. For this reason, they had specially bought gaming cabins and nutrient fluids to prepare for the game. Moreover, after experiencing the game content and knowing that it was more exciting than what was advertised, how could they give up? Therefore, a large number of non-server players gritted their teeth and went online, ready to fight the beast tribe to the death. However, the result was the same. Once again, they were slaughtered and beaten all the way to the top of the mountain. This time, the warriors of the beast tribe didn't kill them. Instead, they captured all of them alive. This was because the warriors of the beast tribe had discovered something strange about the players. It was as if they could resurrect. Every time they killed all the players, a large wave of them would always appear again. Therefore, this time, they were prepared to kill the players in a different way. At this moment, a large number of non-server players who had been captured alive were pushed to the top of the mountain by the warriors of the beast tribe. To the horror of the players, they were lined up in a row and thrown down the mountain one after another. Before they died, they experienced a wave of cordless bungee jumping at high altitude. The non-server players had a mental breakdown once again. The beast-lusting tribe actually had some tricks up their sleeves. Chapter 530. They were free-falling from a mountain peak that was more than 2,000 meters high. It was very exciting, but the mentality of all the non-server players was in despair. What a trashy game! It was so realistic. They had to experience a short yet long period of despair before they died. The non-server players were once again crushed by the warriors of the beast addiction tribe. After this incident, the angry non-server players all swore on the forum that they would cruelly destroy the beast tribe and take revenge for the many times they had killed them. Hence, the non-server players started to consult the experts on the forums of other servers, hoping to receive their help in resolving this predicament. Some of the experts provided a few solutions to the non-server players' requests. For example, they could create a diversion by forming two groups. One group would lure the beast addiction tribe to chase after them, while the other group would be ready to escape at any time. They could also find other mountain paths. After all, there was no such thing as a dead end in the game. Perhaps the game developers had set up a secret path down the mountain for them to sneak out. The non-server players tried the methods suggested by the players from other servers, but they all failed without exception. What made the non-server players even more terrified was that the beast addiction tribe's actions became more and more overboard. They seemed to have realized that the players could be revived. Hence, every time the non-server players tried to break through their tight defenses, the warriors of the beast addiction tribe would change their methods of killing the players. From a simple massacre at the beginning, to free-falling from a high altitude, to burying the players alive, the non-server players felt like they were going crazy. The warriors of the beast addiction tribe had such a twisted sense of humor. Although the non-server players grumbled about this, they tolerated it. What the F***ck were they doing? Did they think they were playing a game? However, reality proved that the warriors of the beast addiction tribe seemed to be treating them like experimental subjects. Their roles seemed to have been swapped. Weren't they supposed to be the ones playing the game? How did the beast addiction tribe end up playing with the players? Because of this, the non-server players were extremely frustrated. The non-server players' misfortune and the beast addiction tribe's evil sense of humor made the players of the other servers burst into laughter. This was the first time in the history of war that the players had been toyed with by the local forces of a large region. In the game, it had always been the players who caused the local forces of the game to break down. This was the first time they had encountered a situation like this. The drama became more and more interesting. Every day, a large number of players entered the forum to watch the drama unfold. The resistance of the non-server players continued, but each time they resisted, they felt mentally exhausted. Because of this, they had no idea how they would die if they were captured. There were all sorts of ways to die. There were also ways to die miserably. For this reason, Crayon Shinchan had specially compiled a set of 1,000 ways to die for non-server players, and posted it on the non-server forum for all non-server players to read. It would cause secondary damage to the non-server players' minds. Crayon Shinchan recorded 47 ways to die. Of it, as the non-server players continued to struggle, crayon, and death. The non-server players gritted their teeth at Crayon Shinchan's action of rubbing salt into their wounds. They're already in such a difficult situation, yet you still came up with a 1,000 ways to die for non-server players to deal a mental blow to our morale? Are you even human? Crayon, but Crayon, they were. He was already used to being ridiculed by forum players, so he continued to ridicule and record. In just a few days, all the non-server players hated Crayon Shinchan. As the saying goes, when there are too many lice, one is not afraid of being bitten. When there are too many debts, one is not afraid of being worried. He had already offended players from 4 different servers. What was wrong with adding another server to the mix? Was there a problem? From Crayon Shinchan's point of view, being happy now was the end of the matter. He would argue and argue whenever he wanted to. He had completely entered the stage where a dead pig was not afraid of boiling water. If he was discovered, he would die anyway, so he didn't care at all. Maybe one day, he would be killed by his own mother in the name of justice. So, the right thing to do now was to seize the time and be happy. Thus, Crayon Shinchan successfully attracted a lot of hatred in the non-Chinese server and once again consolidated his position as the god of trolls in the forum. The non-server players' eyes turned red. If Crayon Shinchan's true identity was exposed, the non-server players would eat him alive. In the past few days, Chara noticed that Jack seemed to be in a bad state of mind. After asking, he found out that the players who were still at Boundless Peak had suffered such great mental torture. They were about to be destroyed by the warriors of the Beast Clan. After a brief moment of surprise, Chara suddenly realized that his actions had dealt a huge blow to the non-server players. At this moment, Chara was also dumbfounded. He had only taken a few snow spirit worms, but he didn't expect the Beast Clan to hate the entire player clan. They even surrounded Boundless Peak. According to Jack, the warriors of the Beast Clan seemed to be researching how to completely wipe out the player clan. They tried all kinds of methods, full of the spirit of scientific research. These few times, they even used the chemical weapons developed by their own clan. The most terrifying thing was that a player was captured and drowned in a cesspool. It was said that if they still couldn't kill the player, the priest of the Beast Clan was prepared to personally use the sacrificial array. If they still couldn't kill the player, they were prepared to change to someone else. The Beast Clan, full of the spirit of scientific research, made the non-server players tremble. Chara was terrified at the thought of how they treated the players like a game. It was no wonder that Jack was in low spirits recently. He was probably about to be destroyed by the warriors of the Beast Clan. After understanding that he was the cause of all this, Chara began to think of a way to resolve the situation. Since the fault was all on him, he had to think of a way to save the non-server players from this predicament. Chara knew very well that although he was a non-server player, the other non-server players were a whole. Perhaps there was competition between the non-server players now, but in the future, they would face cross-server competition between the 5 major servers. They were a team and also an army. The non-server players had started late, and their strength was already lagging behind. If they couldn't resolve the situation, it would have a huge impact on the non-server players. Thus, Chara began to think hard. At this stage, it was obviously unrealistic for him to directly confront the Beast Clan stationed at the foot of Boundless Peak. He didn't have the strength to do so. Thinking of this, Chara suddenly thought of the Beast Pen. This place was obviously very important to the Beast Clan. After all, they reared a large number of rare spiritual beasts. If something happened to the Beast Pen, the Beast Clan would definitely choose to return to defend it. However, what worried Chara was how to enter the well-defended Beast Pen. For this, Chara began to observe the Beast Pen. Every day, he would hide in the bushes near the Beast Pen and observe the distribution and movements of the Beast Pen's troops. While Chara was working hard, the non-server players were still living a miserable life. But at the same time, their anger was accumulating bit by bit as they were tortured. As players, how could they not feel angry at being toyed with like this? All the non-server players secretly swore to take revenge for this. Chapter 531. During this period, the non-server players became the focus of Battle Royale's players. This was because the non-server players were in a terrible situation. For 5 consecutive days, they were stuck at Boundless Peak with nowhere to retreat or advance. Under such conditions, the non-server players could only attack the Beastkin tribe's troops again and again. They wanted to learn from the other server players and kill the Beastkin tribe until they vomited blood. However, this tactic was clearly ineffective against the Beastkin tribe. This was because the Beastkin tribe was different from the other underworld races that the players had encountered. This race was extremely curious and had a desire to explore. At this moment, the players had completely become their experimental subject. It was impossible for the players to kill them until they vomited blood. Instead, they began to play with them in different ways. At this moment, the non-server players were filled with grief and indignation. They tried every method, but all of them failed without exception. However, in the face of such a difficult situation, the non-server players united. The civil war subsided, and they began to work together to deal with the Beastkin tribe's devastation. The posts on the non-server forum were also discussing how to break through the blockade. With the unity of will, the non-server players' desire for victory continued to grow. At this moment, a post suddenly appeared on the non-server forum, attracting the attention of many non-server players. Unlucky ones, have you ever wondered why the Beastkin tribe is so hostile toward the players? I think there's more to it than meets the eye. Content. Greetings, unlucky ones. I'm the author of Unconvinced Death. I believe everyone is familiar with me, laughing emoji. I also know that everyone wants to criticize me, laughing emoji. Go ahead and criticize me. Don't mind me, but don't hold it in, laughing emoji. As for the purpose of this post, I want to tell all of you something. Why don't you consider why the Beastkin tribe is so hostile toward you? After interacting with them for the past few days, I believe everyone has realized that the warriors of the Beastkin tribe are intelligent creatures. Although they have strange tempers, they are a race that can be communicated with. However, their hostility toward the players is very abrupt. Regarding this, I have 2 points of analysis. First, the eastern part of the Thorn Forest is the territory of the Beast tribe. If you enter their territory, you will naturally be viewed with hostility. It would be normal for them to start a war against you. When the European server first launched, the Hidden Dragon Swamp they were in was also the Hidden Dragon Ghost General's territory. The Hidden Dragon Ghost General chose to force the unfamiliar player clan into submission instead of starting a war. He hoped that the European server players would take the initiative to retreat. However, the beast-crazed tribe's reaction was completely different. Without saying a word, they went back and forth to the players' safe zone. This was very abnormal. It did not seem like something an intelligent race would do. Of course, there was also another possibility. Perhaps the beast-loving tribe was just that barbaric. If they didn't like the beast-loving tribe, they wanted to kill them until they went extinct. His second guess was that a player had done something that angered the beast tribe. The unlucky ones can refer to the great demon king on this point. When he goes crazy, he can destroy the players. During the early stages of the original server's development, he likes to increase the difficulty of survival for the original players. So, do you think there is such a possibility? For example, if a player or a group of players did something that triggered a strong reaction from the beast-crazed tribe, the beast-crazed tribe would immediately view the players as invaders and order breakers. In other words, they would be enemies. I believe that the veteran players who are familiar with battle campaign would know that in the underworld, no matter how harsh the living environment was, all forces would always exist as a single race. Therefore, as long as a portion of the players did something that angered the beast-crazed tribe, the beast-crazed tribe would obviously treat the entire player race as an enemy. This is because in their eyes, the players are an entire force. If the truth is as I have guessed, then the unlucky ones should seriously consider whether it was their own people who did something. After all, the battle campaign officials would never give you a super difficult problem that you can't solve at the start of the game. This point can be referred to the Naraka server. Since the survival difficulty is so high, they have directly opened up a random revival mode so that they can develop in such a harsh environment. Lastly, the development of the plot in battle campaign does not revolve around the players. Instead, it operates as an independent system. You are just a participant. Some things that happen in battle campaign will cause a chain reaction. Many things that you might think are out of the ordinary must have happened in the dark. There must be many truths that you have not seen. Looking at you guys in such a miserable state, I feel sorry for you. I can't help but want to give you some advice. Don't thank me, helping others makes me happy. Crayon Shinchan's post caused an uproar in the non-official server. As one of the players with the highest online rate in the forum, Crayon Shinchan's ability to criticize others made the players gnash their teeth. However, his understanding of the game was also beyond the reach of many players. After all, Crayon Shinchan had read countless posts on strategy guides and had a solid foundation. In fact, Crayon Shinchan could be considered one of the players who had the most thorough research on battle campaign. Therefore, his analysis attracted the attention of the non-official server players, and they felt that what Crayon Shinchan said made sense. It was obviously a little strange that the Beast Rush tribe would be so hostile to them. Therefore, the non-official server players mobilized to investigate the matter. At this moment, all the non-official server players were filled with anger and really needed a target to vent their anger. Under Crayon Shinchan's guidance, the non-official server players shifted their focus and began to try to find the culprit. The power of the players was undoubtedly huge. It seemed like there were no clues at all, but the players still managed to find some clues. Soon, the non-official server players locked onto a target. Chara. That was because the problem with Chara was too big. First, it was on the level leaderboard. Now that the entire non-official server had entered a stage where leveling up had stopped, no one could break through the blockade. Other than enjoying the scenery on the mountain peak, how could one possibly fight monsters and level up? However, the players discovered that Chara's level was actually increasing every day. There were no monsters to kill in the entire Boundless Peak, so Chara's level increase was particularly eye-catching. Obviously, Chara was not in the Boundless Peak at the moment, but in the Thorn Forest outside. Naturally, the non-official server players could not come to a conclusion based on this clue alone. However, soon they found a second clue. That was, an item in the auction house had attracted the attention of the players. The corpse of the snow spirit worm. Chara did not use all of the snow spirit worms. In order to save money to buy a gaming cabin, he threw one of them into the auction house, offered a high price, and hung it there. The non-official server players did not pay attention to this thing before, but now that they thought about it, they felt that its origin was very strange. The non-official server players had searched the entire Boundless Peak, but they were certain that such a worm did not exist. It was obviously obtained from the outside world. Moreover, this snow spirit worm's introduction showed that it was a reared worm. In this eastern thorn forest, the only force that could rear spirit beasts was the beast addiction tribe. The non-official server players had also learned about the value of spirit beasts from other servers. This was an item that could be compared to high-grade spiritual materials, and its value was very high. If the players had stolen the spirit beasts, it was understandable that the beast addiction tribe would be angry. These 2 points could explain why the beast addiction tribe was so hostile towards the players. It was obvious that the spirit beasts they reared were stolen, and they thought that the players were provoking and declaring war on them, so they retaliated angrily. Of course, although these 2 points could explain why the beast addiction tribe was hostile towards the players, they still could not confirm that it was Chara who had stolen the snow spirit worms. This was because it could have been done by other players, but they had been killed back to the Boundless Peak. However, when the 3rd clue appeared, the non-official server players' emotions exploded. On the 7th day after the mountain was sealed, another snow spirit worm was put up in the auction house. This time, Chara's suspicions rose sharply. Although the non-official server players could not confirm that Chara was the only one who had escaped the lockdown. However, Chara was undoubtedly the most suspicious if he had the ability to repeatedly steal the snow spirit worms from the beast addiction tribe. After all, he was a wall-level player with a winning streak of 103 in the individual arena. In an instant, Chara was condemned by both mouth and pen. The non-official server players felt that they had finally found the culprit, and they were all riled up. Now, the non-official server players understood that it was not that the Battle League officials did not love them, nor was it that their original plans to fight against the local forces were useless. It was that someone had angered the beast addiction tribe in advance and increased the difficulty of the game. The clues were still being found, but the non-official server players could basically confirm that Chara was the culprit. Their anger was brewing. At this moment, the non-official server players decided that as long as there was a chance to get out, they would hunt Chara down and punish him harshly. This was to thank him for increasing the difficulty of the non-official server's growth. If the Boundless Peak was not blocked by the beast addiction tribe, the players would not have been able to hold back and would have gone out to search for Chara. They would have killed him at least 100 times to vent their anger. After confirming the truth, the non-official server players finally could not wait any longer. Faced with the undefeatable beast addiction tribe, they decided to adopt the most extreme and most unwilling decision: dig a hole. It seemed like there was no other way to deal with the situation. Therefore, the non-official server players began to mobilize. Starting from the mountainside, they planned to dig a tunnel downwards. After that, the non-official server workers began to diligently dig the tunnel. After a discussion, the non-official server guilds divided the work. Countless players joined in, preparing for a huge project. During this period, there were those who dug, those who transported, and those who commanded on the spot. The work was in full swing. Since there was no way out, the non-official server players decided to dig one out. All the players were prepared to work for a long time. The performance of the non-official server players made the other server players burst into laughter once again. Not only were they forced to wait at the resurrection point since the start of the server, but they were also forced to work. Carrying bricks was so realistic that the other server players were in awe. While the other server players were amused by the fact that they were forced to play the game to such an extent, they were also in awe of them. They were so king hardworking. There were even players from other servers who had applied for cross-server support from the officials, hoping to help the poor non-official server players get through the early stage of the game. Lu Wu, who understood all this, did not know whether to laugh or cry. He felt that these non-official server players were simply talented. How could they have such thoughts? Although the physique of the non-official server players was a few times stronger than in reality, such a huge project was simply a waste of time. At this moment, Lu Wu compromised. He was completely convinced. If he allowed the non-official server players to continue like this, It would be a complete waste of time for them to grow. The loss outweighed the gain. Helpless, Lu Wu finally decided to open an expedition hack for the non-official server players. Therefore, on the same day, an announcement rang in all 5 servers at the same time. Server-wide announcement. The cross-server expedition system is officially activated. Target: the land of Xianfeng. Server-wide announcement. The servers for this cross-server expedition are Beiki, Sangshu, Hell, and Devil's Spine. Chapter 532. As soon as the announcement was made, the players in all the servers were in an uproar. The cross-server expedition had only appeared in Beiki before. The other servers had never received such a world-class, large-scale mission. The rewards of the cross-server expedition were also very generous to the players. Usually, killing monsters would only earn experience and soul coins. However, in the cross-server expedition, killing monsters would be rewarded with military merit. Military merits could be exchanged for military ranks, which had additional attribute bonuses similar to titles. Apart from these, there were also many special rewards, such as resurrection items, super attribute enhancement items, and so on. Military rank skills could only be obtained in the cross-server expedition. How could the players in other servers not be envious? They wondered when their servers would also have such an opportunity. Just because Beiki had launched the cross-server expedition twice, many players in other servers were dissatisfied. They felt that the Beiki players were being treated too well and that the opportunity to cross servers should come in turn. However, the opportunity had finally arrived. How could the players in all the servers not be excited? One by one, they clicked on the registration panel and started to sign up. The number of applicants for the cross-server expedition skyrocketed. Although Lu Wu had set a limit of 10 minutes for the registration, it was still too much to handle the number of players who had signed up. None of the players wanted to miss the opportunity to receive free benefit. Whether or not they could help the non-servers to break through the blockade was secondary. The reward was the most important thing. In just a few minutes, more than a quarter of the players in each server had successfully signed up. There were also many players who had heard about the cross-server expedition and were rushing home. They did not want to miss it. The popularity was completely beyond Lu Wu's imagination. At this moment, he could not help but facepalm. He initially thought that 10 minutes was enough to limit the number of applicants, but now it seemed that he had completely miscalculated. The boundless peak was not too high above sea level, but it covered a wide area. It would be crowded if so many players were transported there at once. When the registration ended in 10 minutes, Lu Wu looked at the number of applicants. 980 million. Lu Wu could not imagine the scene when the cross-server expedition officially started. He guessed that many players would be squeezed off the cliff as soon as they entered, and it would be normal for them to be trampled. After all, with so many people, there were bound to be a few unlucky ones. After everything was ready, Lu Wu took a deep breath, activated the artifact, and started the cross-server expedition. At this moment, the server announcement rang. Server-wide announcement. Cross-server expedition officially begins. Countdown 10, 9, 7, 1. When the countdown ended, white pillars of light descended from the sky and enveloped the players of all the major servers. In an instant, the consciousness of these registered players was shielded. They entered the artifact and were transported to the Xianfeng territory through the artifact. Hearing that the cross-server expedition was about to begin, the non-server players were also extremely excited. This meant that they finally didn't have to dig anymore. The working people were liberated. It was so King exciting. Just like that, amidst the anticipation, countless white lights appeared in every corner of the boundless mountains. The silhouettes of the cross-server players gradually became clear. At this time, the server announcement sounded again. Server-wide announcement. The inter-server expedition has officially begun. Players participating in the inter-server expedition may kill the warriors of the non-server hostile force, Beast Attic tribe, to earn military points to exchange for military titles and special items. As the white light dissipated, the Doomsday Army assembled for the first time. Naraka's technological army, mecha warriors, tanks and even airplanes, all sorts of technological products flashing with a metallic luster, arrived domineeringly. The European server's necromancer Black Robe Army, countless beasts gathered to form the Death Knight Army. The atmosphere was cold and austere, full of deterrence. The Asia server's superpower army, the Alien Warrior Army and the strongest, the self-proclaimed Baki Doomsday Army. Compared to the non-server players who were still holding white equipment, the equipment of these 4 cross-server reinforcements was absolutely overwhelming. The difference was unbearable to look at. At this moment, the non-server players felt like they were really like refugees. Looking at the splendidly equipped reinforcements, they only had one thought in their mind. How King envious. At this moment, the mountains and plains were filled with the players. After a short silence, the cross-server players rushed down the mountain in a frenzy. Go get them! The Baki army is the best in the world. Military points. It's my first time getting military points. Don't stop me, I want to fight 100,000 of them. Report the Naraka server for cheating. What the is flying a plane. Is the Naraka server developing so fast? Does the Asia server not care about their reputation? How can Baki and the European server run so fast? Their attributes are amazing. I don't know what to shout. I'm so excited. It's the first time a cross-server newbie is reporting. What's that priest's name? Didn't you tell me that you don't like fighting and killing? Why are they running so fast? Get lost, don't get in my way. If you keep pushing, I'll kill you too. Have some manners. Those who block me from getting military points die. Are you all crazy? Can't you just rush down in an orderly manner? Do you know the formation? Do you know the strategy? Strategy my ass. Get lost. Let me go. Don't block the way or I'll kill you too. You bastard from the Naraka server, your tank is crushing me. I almost died from your pressure. I'm just a fragile mage, can't you be gentler? After a brief silence, the earthquake happened. The entire boundless peak was shaking, and the scene was extremely chaotic. At this moment, the players only had one thought in their minds, and that was to run quickly. Don't let these bastards steal all the military points. Seeing this scene, the non-server players trembled in fear. They looked at the white weapons in their hands, then at the fully equipped players from the other servers in front of them. They wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They wondered why the non-server players were so pitiful. If they didn't compare, they wouldn't know. However, when they thought about how they would be able to take revenge soon, the non-server players became excited. They shouted and rushed down with the players from the 4 servers. At this moment, they wanted the Beast Rush tribe to pay with their blood. Below them, the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe stationed at the foot of the mountain also noticed the abnormality of the boundless peak. The ground was shaking violently, as if something was about to happen. Under the leadership of the Beast Rush tribe priest, the tribe quickly assembled. At this moment, the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe had a sinister look on their faces. Because they knew that their test subjects were coming again. They could be happy again. However, it was obvious that they had guessed wrong this time. When the army of players appeared before them, they were instantly dumbfounded. Mounts, battle armors, and glowing equipment. The players were still players, but compared to before, these players were not to be trifled with. Kill. The players didn't care whether the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe were shocked or not. Like a torrent, they rushed down from the mountain and charged into the battle of the Beast Rush tribe. At this moment, the cross-server battle had officially begun. In the past, when they fought against the non-server players, the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe could basically kill one player with a single hammer strike. They could even kill several players with a single hammer strike. However, this time, they were facing the 4 calamity armies that had matured. When they encountered classes with high defense, such as zombies and death knights, they couldn't even kill them with 10 hammer strike. Previously, when the non-server players fought, they mainly relied on basic attack. However, the players of the 4 calamity armies continuously used all sorts of dazzling skills, completely defeating the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe. What the F***ck? Why did they change overnight? Retreat! Retreat! At this moment, the priest of the Beast Rush tribe began to shout anxiously. Retreat my ass! Stay here! A player leaped into the air and swung his staff at the priest's head, causing him to stumble. In the eyes of the players, fleeing during the cross-server battle was too much. The earning of military merits had just begun. How could they let them escape? In terms of harvesting, the Naraka server was incomparably ferocious. Bombs, grenades, and bullets rained down in a frenzy, covering an area of effect. This undoubtedly made the players of the original server, the European server, and the Asian server unhappy. Hence, as they advanced, they decisively killed the players of the Naraka server as well. After all, there were only so many warriors of the Beast Rush tribe in front of them. All the players had the same mentality. Whoever dared to snatch the points would be the enemy. In the past, the players of the 4 main servers would only argue and spit at each other on the forum. However, this time, they were fighting with real guns and live ammunition. Crazy, crazy! As they retreated, the priest couldn't help but mutter. In his eyes, these players had all changed. Not only did their strength skyrocket, but they had also all gone crazy. They continuously hammered the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe. When they became ruthless, they would even attack their own people. They were simply crazy. However, to the players, this was extremely normal. After all, it was a cross-server battle. Only the people from their own server would be attacked and protected. Since the other servers were in their way, they would just kill them. The situation became more and more chaotic. At this moment, the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe were so terrified that they could only retreat. Meanwhile, the players followed closely behind. They were like fierce beasts, devouring the warriors along the way. At the same time, they attacked each other as they advanced. Dismantle this mech. This bastard's killing efficiency is too high. He can't be left alive. Kill this sorcerer. He kills monsters quickly. EA missiles lock onto him. Focus fire. Open fire. The live chat channels of the various servers were in a mess. As long as someone killed monsters quickly, they would be considered a potential threat by the players of the other servers. Then, they would have to face the combined attacks of the players of the other servers. At this moment, the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe were on the verge of tears. They felt that the death experiment had mutated the player clan. It was too scary. At this moment, they wished they had 4 legs so that they could run faster. Meanwhile, the players were in a frenzy. They killed with vigor. Apart from those they acknowledged, everyone else was an enemy. They were going to bash them to death. Rune Masters wrestled with steel mechs, Necromancers clashed with superpower users with spells, Beast Riders clashed with paragons. In the eyes of the warriors of the Beast Rush tribe, the player clan's image went from being weak chickens that could be slaughtered at will to an evil force that would even kill their own people. The situation was too chaotic. Although the Beast Rush tribe kept retreating, they couldn't escape the pursuit of the players. Their casualties continued to increase. At this moment, the players of the other servers arrived and joined in the chase. However, the excited players of the other servers didn't expect that the ones who would bash their heads would not be the Beast Rush tribe, but the people they thought were their allies. In the eyes of the players of the other 4 servers who had come to reinforce them, the players of the other servers were here to help. They were already here to help, yet the players of the other servers still wanted to steal their kills. Were they even human? Therefore, not only did they not show any mercy to the players of the other servers, they even tried to kill them. At this moment, the players of the other servers had a mental breakdown. They killed their own people. The people of the other servers were like dogs. They were utterly heartless. They deserved to die a horrible death.